Chapter 1679. The moment a Buddha's silhouette attacked, it swept out a palm and forced the five elements Saber Saint and the young emperor to retreat. The power contained in such a small jade talisman was even more terrifying than that of a half-step celestial being. Is this a jade talisman refined by a celestial being? Chu Fengmian exclaimed when he saw the jade talisman that monk Zhuan took out. The Buddha that appeared was able to force the young emperor and the five elements Saber Saint to retreat. A jade talisman with such shocking power must be of the celestial being realm, and not the kind that had just stepped into the celestial being realm. Instead, it was a jade talisman that could be considered to have been crafted by an expert in the celestial realm, which was why it had such power. Chu Fengmian thought of monk Zhuan. Since he dared to bring little Yao Wang Hanyi to the Great Strengths Hall, he must have the means to fight against the young emperor and the five elements Saber Saint. However, the jade talisman that monk Zhuan took out was beyond Chu Fengmian's expectations. A jade talisman of the celestial being realm should not exist in this era. The power of this jade talisman was especially new. It was definitely not the kind of jade talisman that had been passed down from ancient times. Could there be a celestial being in the reincarnation sect? Chu Fengmian thought incredulously. Although there were still rumors about the celestial being realm in the world, the celestial being realm was almost like a legend. Whether it was the former number one genius of the Daluo star field, Yunzun, or the number one genius of the demon race, the young emperor, they were all half-step celestial beings. Even Chu Fengmian had not heard of the real celestial being realm. He thought that there were no celestial being realm experts in this world. However, when he saw the jade talisman in monk Zhuan hand, Chu Fengmian realized that his guess was wrong. However, this jade talisman should be an extremely rare item for monk Zhuan. The moment he crushed the jade talisman, his eyes were filled with pain. It seemed that monk Zhuan would not have used this jade talisman if not for the remains of demon Emperor Xuewu. Previously in the mausoleum of the Golden Buddha, if monk Zhuan had used this jade talisman, the one who had to run would not be monk Zhuan but Chu Fengmian. Chu Fengmian was monk Zhuan's forehead. Fortunately, Chu Fengmian did not pursue the Zhuan monk relentlessly. Otherwise, if the Zhuan monk was forced to the extreme, he would activate the jade talisman to deal with Chu Fengmian. Chu Fengmian Zhuan was Zhuan. When the jade talisman was crushed, the strength of the Buddha that was revealed had already surpassed the level of a half-step celestial being. Zhuan was Zhuan NNN. The illusory Buddha didn't chase after them. Instead, it simply stood there, not allowing anyone to pass. As for monk Zhuan, he turned into a ray of light and flew in the direction of the skeleton of the evil blood demon emperor. Together with little Yao Wang Hanyi, they went to collect the skeleton of the evil blood demon emperor. After all, the Buddha's shadow was just a shadow summoned by crushing the jade talisman. It was not a real Buddha in the celestial realm. The power contained within was limited. Now, the Zhuan monk had crushed the jade talisman to summon the illusory Buddha. He was merely stalling for time to stop the young emperor and the five elements Saber Saint. This would give him a chance to collect the evil blood devil emperor's remains. Damn it, where did this kid come from? Xiao Di was enraged by Zhuan monk's actions. He had thought that the remains of demon emperor blood demon would be his after defeating Chu Fengmian. But now Chu Fengmian was gone, and monk Zhuan was here. The Buddha's shadow was right there, blocking the path. Even though the young emperor had tried countless times to break through, he was beaten back time and time again. The realm of the celestial being realm was completely different from the half-step celestial being realm. Even if it was just a shadow summoned from a jade talisman, it could easily stop the young emperor and the five elements Saber Saint. Both the young emperor and the five elements Saber Saint have stopped them. Great! Chu Fengmian's heart skipped a beat. He realized that this was the best opportunity for him to strike. In an instant, Chu Fengmian's body moved. He removed the woodification of his body and turned into a ray of golden light. He suddenly rushed toward the tall throne in the center of the great strength hall. Vast power erupted from Chu Fengmian's body. Several rays of sword qi flew out from the world-edge sword case on his back, slashing toward the Zhuanluan monk and the little Yao Wang Hanyi. What's going on? Where did the sword qi come from? The little Yao Wang Hanyi and the Zhuanluan monk focused all their attention on the remains of the evil blood demon emperor. They exerted their power to attack the remaining spiritual power on the remains of the evil blood demon emperor. The sudden slash of the sword light caught them off guard. They quickly retreated. Their eyes flashed as they saw Chu Fengmian rushing toward them in a ray of golden light. Chu Fengmian? You're not injured? The little Yao Wang Hanyi said in surprise. The aura on Chu Fengmian's body was so strong that there was no sign of injury. Oh no, we've been fooled. You go and delay him. I'll collect the remains of the evil blood demon emperor. The Zhuanluan monk's eyes flashed. He immediately understood that the scene of Chu Fengmian seeming to be injured was just for them to see. Now that they were lured out, Chu Fengmian came back to kill them after using all his trump cards. However, the Zhuanluan monk also understood that it was not the time to be entangled with Chu Fengmian. Although the power contained in the celestial realm jade talisman was terrifying, it was getting weaker and weaker under the joint bombardment of the two experts who were half a step away from the celestial realm. If they did not collect the remains of the evil blood demon emperor now, they would have no chance when the young emperor and the 5 elements saber saint rushed over. Kill! Hearing this, little Yao Wang Hanyi didn't hesitate at all. His figure flickered again and again, rushing towards Chu Fengmian. Martial God Overlord! Rumble! A surge of martial spirit broke out from behind the little Yao Wang Hanyi and shrouded his body, as if a real martial god had descended. The aura of the little Yao Wang Hanyi was much stronger than the last time he fought with Chu Fengmian. His strength had almost reached the overlord realm among the 9 tribulations Emperor Gu, such as Long Maluo. Last time, the little Yao Wang Hanyi was defeated by Chu Fengmian and lost 90% of his power. Now it seemed that he had profited from the disaster and gained more opportunities. His strength was much stronger. Chapter 1680. Little Yao Wang Hanya's current aura was much stronger than the last time he saw him. However, the previous invincible overlord's martial way on his body had disappeared with a loud bang. The last time Chu Fengmian defeated little Yao Wang Hanya, he was about to shatter his invincible heart. As long as this invincible heart was defeated once, it would be ruthlessly defeated. This was also the difficulty of cultivating the overlord's martial way. Once the invincible heart was shattered, it would leave a heart demon in little Yao Wang Hanya's heart. Little beast, you didn't expect it, did you? Last time you didn't kill me, but let me get an even more amazing adventure. This time I must kill you. Eradicate the heart demon in my heart. Little Yao Wang Hanya looked at Chu Fengmian and said with a ferocious face. His heart demon was Chu Fengmian, who had defeated him. As long as he could kill Chu Fengmian, his heart demon would dissipate at any time. It was more likely that his mind would be clear, and he would once again rebuild his invincible heart. He wanted to kill Chu Fengmian with his own hands and eradicate his heart demon. Rumble! At this moment, little Yao Wang Hanya's martial way completely broke out from his body, condensing on the fist wind in his palm, and immediately bombarded Chu Fengmian with a punch. With a punch, the power of the sky and the earth, shrouding Chu Fengmian. Boy! Die! Little Yao Wang Hanya roared ferociously, and repeatedly struck out several fist winds. The power of each fist wind was no less than the previous one. A total of 5 fist winds bombarded Chu Fengmian at the same time. The moment this move was made, it was almost equivalent to the bombardment of 5 peak figures of the 9 tribulations Emperor Gu. Vaguely, in the fist wind of little Yao Wang Hanya, there was a bit of Buddhist aura. Vajra tyrant fist of Buddhism? Chu Fengmian thought in his mind, and instantly saw the origin of little Yao Wang Hanye's fist. Vajra tyrant fist, a heaven-level martial skill, was one of the most tyrannical martial skills in Buddhism. However, Chu Fengmian's expression didn't change at all in the face of these 5 punches. His eyes even revealed a bit of disdain. Chu Fengmian's body moved as the 5 fist winds bombarded him. Sword edge. The ancestral dragon supreme sword was immediately unsheathed in Chu Fengmian's hand. He slashed out without any hesitation. There was no swordsmanship displayed in this sword. It was just an ordinary sword, but it exploded with an extremely shocking power. Crack! The 5 fist winds that were about to bombard Chu Fengmian's body were all shattered by the sword. Then, Chu Fengmian's figure suddenly moved and suddenly attacked. A palm enveloped little Yao Wang Hanyi, and a tyrannical power oppressed little Yao Wang Hanye's body. On the 5 fingers of Chu Fengmian's hand, a wave of spiritual energy condensed. The moment it flew out, it instantly transformed into 5 noble ancient battle dragons, and fiercely suppressed the body of little Yao Wang Hanyi. In an instant, little Yao Wang Hanye's tyrannical martial skills were all shattered. His body was abruptly beaten to the ground, and he knelt on the ground, trembling. The power in Chu Fengmian's body was extremely violent. At this moment, he exerted all of his strength. Last time, little Yao Wang Hanyi escaped from Chu Fengmian's hands. Chu Fengmian wouldn't let such a thing happen a second time. You think I can't kill you? Last time, someone saved you. This time, I'd like to see who can save you. 5 Dragons' secret skill. Chu Fengmian let out a long roar. The 5 ancient battle dragons that suppressed little Yao Wang Hanyi suddenly roared, and drilled into little Yao Wang Hanye's body. Each ancient battle dragon contained a power that was not inferior to little Yao Wang Hanye's. These 5 ancient battle dragons drilled into little Yao Wang Hanye's body at the same time. Little Yao Wang's body almost couldn't bear this incomparably violent power, and suddenly began to swell. Monk Zhuanluan had many means to save people, and Chu Fengmian was incomparably fearful. However, this time, Chu Fengmian wouldn't give Monk Zhuanluan a chance to save people. Explode! Under Chu Fengmian's command, the 5 ancient battle dragons in little Yao Wang Hanye's body suddenly began to swell. He wanted little Yao Wang Hanyi to self-destruct. Once a warrior self-destructed, even if someone had amazing means, even if an expert of the celestial realm came, he wouldn't be able to save him. Not good. How did this person's strength become so tyrannical? Monk Zhuanluan was just about to collect the evil demon emperor's skeleton when he heard little Yao Wang Hanye's screams. His face suddenly changed. Little Yao Wang Hanye's strength had improved a lot compared to before, and he had also obtained the true inheritance of Buddhist martial arts. In his opinion, even if he couldn't defeat Chu Fengmian, he would be able to delay for a while. However, he didn't expect little Yao Wang to be so weak. Now that Chu Fengmian's strength was so tyrannical, if Monk Zhuanluan lost little Yao Wang Hanyi, it would be more dangerous for him to face Chu Fengmian alone. Monk Zhuanluan's figure suddenly rushed over, and another Buddhist light shot out from his palm, falling on little Yao Wang Hanye's body. The light of redemption, one of the most mysterious secret techniques of Buddhism, could save people from danger. This light of redemption shrouded little Yao Wang Hanye's body, and wanted to take him away from Chu Fengmian's palm. You want it? Then I'll give it to you. Chu Fengmian looked at Monk Zhuanluan, and a smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. Instead of suppressing him, he let go of little Yao Wang Hanyi. Without the suppression of Chu Fengmian's power, little Yao Wang Hanye's body immediately flew towards Monk Zhuanluan. This is... Monk Zhuanluan saw Chu Fengmian's action and was extremely surprised. He didn't expect Chu Fengmian to let him go so easily. Looking at the smile on Chu Fengmian's face, a sense of uneasiness suddenly filled his mind. At the same time, the power in little Yao Wang Han Ye's body had become more and more violent. Self-explosion. When he saw the violent power in little Yao Wang Han Ye's body, Monk Xuanluan's face suddenly changed. He hurriedly retreated, trying to pull away. Go! Chu Fengmian ordered, and little Yao Wang Han Ye's body suddenly rushed towards Monk Xuanlun. These 5 ancient war dragons penetrated into little Yao Wang Han Ye's body, and had completely controlled his spiritual power. Now, this little Yao Wang Han Yi had completely become Chu Fengmian's puppet. Even if he still had consciousness, he could not mobilize the spiritual power in his body. He could only watch all this with his eyes wide open. Chapter 1681. I don't want to blow myself up. No. Chu Fengmian, let me go, I'm willing to recognize you as my master. Little Yao Wang Hanye's body was already under Chu Fengmian's control, but he was still conscious. He looked at Chu Fengmian and hurriedly begged for mercy. He had just had a fortuitous encounter, and his strength had improved further. Even if he lost the tyrant martial arts, he was still more powerful than before. In the future, he might have a chance to attack the half-step celestial being realm. He didn't want to die. Recognize me as your master? Trash like you don't have this qualification. Obediently blowing yourself up is the only useful thing you can do. Chu Fengmian said resolutely, without considering little Yao Wang Hanye's words. He originally wanted to subdue some masters to guard the Sword Tao sect, but this little Yao Wang Hanye was extremely sinister, and repeatedly schemed against Chu Fengmian. Keeping him, even if he was engraved with the heavenly death seal, would be a disaster. Naturally, Chu Fengmian couldn't keep such a disaster alive. The only use of little Yao Wang Hanye now was to blow himself up. Chu Fengmian sneered, while urging out all the power of little Yao Wang Hanye, burning his essence and blood, to burst out the most tyrannical power, and madly rushed towards Monk Xuanluan. No, no. Chu Fengmian, you are treacherous, you dare to kill me. The masters of the Holy Academy sect won't let you go. My master is Huyen Wuzun. He will definitely kill you. Hearing Chu Fengmian's ruthless answer, little Yao Wang Hanye cursed, and at the same time, begged Monk Xuanlun. Brother Xuanluan, save me, my master is a half-step celestial being realm master. If you save me, he will definitely give you a lot of benefits, whatever you want, my master will give you. Save me. Now, little Yao Wang Hanye's only life-saving straw was Monk Xuanlun. Last time, he almost died in Chu Fengmian's hands, but was saved by Monk Xuanlun. This time, he begged for mercy. But now, Monk Xuanluan was already powerless to protect himself. Looking at the approaching little Yao Wang Hanye, his face was extremely ugly. The self-explosion of a peak 9 tribulations Emperor Gu was more terrifying than the full blow of a half-step celestial being. This kind of power was almost impossible for him to resist. If it wasn't for the fact that he still wanted to obtain the evil blood demon emperor's remains, he would have already used a secret technique to escape. After using up the Jade Talisman, are we going to end up with nothing? Monk Xuanluan thought unwillingly, but before he could finish his thought, that little Yao Wang Hanyi had already closed in on his body. Rumble! Waves of berserk power gushed out from little Yao Wang Hanye's body. The moment they closed in on the reincarnation monk, these berserk energies exploded simultaneously. Boom! The power of this explosion was even more terrifying than the young emperor's collapse of heaven and earth. A peak figure of the 9 tribulations Emperor Gu had unleashed all his power at this moment. The terrifying power that erupted was enough to engulf everything around him. Many of the 9 tribulations Emperor Gu's peak Devil Clan members saw this scene, and their hearts were cold beyond compare. With the peak strength of the 9 tribulations Emperor Gu, no matter which star field or race he was in, he would be an absolute powerhouse. Once he stepped into the half-step celestial being realm in the future, he would become a giant existence. But little Yao Wang Hanya was controlled by Chu Fengmian to self-explode, without any resistance. This made the Nine Tribulations Emperor Gu's several Devil Clan members look at Chu Fengmian with fear in their eyes. They didn't dare to intervene at all. The huge explosion shook the entire Great Buddha's hall, and the destructive and berserk energy swept everything around. Monk Zhuanluan was the first to be engulfed in it, and he also knew that now was not the time for him to think. Rays of dazzling Buddha's light soared into the sky from the center of the explosion. Monk Zhuanluan launched a series of secret techniques, and forcibly tore a crack in the center of the explosion. A ray of Buddha's light flew out from the crack, left the Great Buddha's hall, and disappeared without a trace. Even the self-explosion couldn't trap Monk Zhuanluan. This person has too many secret techniques. Seeing this scene, Chu Fengmian let out a sigh. He controlled the little Yao Wang Han Yi and planned to let the little Yao Wang Han Yi explode to kill the Monk Zhuanluan. It would be best if the Monk Zhuanluan was seriously injured. Then, Chu Fengmian would take action and capture the Monk Zhuanluan. However, it seemed that Chu Fengmian still underestimated Monk Zhuanluan. Even little Yao Wang Hanya's self-explosion couldn't really threaten him, and only forced him to retreat. Looking at the Buddha's light in the distance, Chu Fengmian didn't intend to chase after it. Instead, his body flashed, and he rushed in the direction of the throne. The Taichu sword on the skeleton of Evil Blood Demon Emperor and the fragment of the Emperor Jar were what Chu Fengmian wanted most now. Collect. An ancient jar suddenly appeared in the palm of Chu Fengmian's hand. It was the Emperor Jar. Now that 6 fragments had been integrated into the Emperor Jar, it didn't look as broken as it used to be. Instead, it only looked a little broken. The engravings on it had also recovered a lot, and it had already recovered to its former state of being the top weapon of the human emperor. As soon as the Emperor Jar appeared, the fragment of the Emperor Jar that was embedded in Evil Blood Demon Emperor's chest suddenly felt the power and wanted to fly out. However, there was a tyrannical force on Demon Emperor Shuexie's body that trapped the fragment of the Emperor's jar. The undying fighting soul is gone, and there's still such a troublesome force. Chu Fengmian frowned. Just now, the undying fighting soul had died, but it didn't mean that the force on Evil Blood Demon Emperor's body had dissipated. The fragment of the Emperor Jar had been embedded in Evil Blood Demon Emperor's chest for hundreds of thousands of years, and it had become a part of Evil Blood Demon Emperor's body. Waves of demonic will condensed into a barrier, preventing the fragment of the Emperor Jar from flying out. 2 swords out. Break. In the palm of Chu Fengmian's hand, the 2 swords came out at the same time. Without hesitation, Chu Fengmian slashed down with the 2 swords. If Chu Fengmian used the sky-devouring secret skill to devour the demonic will on Evil Blood Demon Emperor's body, he could refine it bit by bit. However, he didn't have the time to do so now. As soon as the reincarnation monk escaped, the power of the Buddha shadow summoned by the Immortal Realm Jade Amulet was rapidly weakening. Chu Fengmian couldn't afford to waste any more time. The 2 swords slashed down at the same time, and the sharp sword chi tore through everything. Layers of barriers condensed by the demonic will were mercilessly shattered. As Chu Fengmian grasped his palm, the fragment of the Emperor Jar emerged from Evil Blood Demon Emperor's chest and flew into Chu Fengmian's hand. Chapter 1682. The 7th Fragment of the Emperor Jar. Chu Fengmian was delighted when he felt the power of the Emperor emanating from his palm. Chu Fengmian could obtain the 7th fragment of the Emperor Jar. Once it was integrated into the jar, its power would increase by several times. When the 6th fragment was integrated into the jar underwent a huge change and condensed into the Emperor Halberd. Once the 7th fragment of the Emperor Jar was integrated into the Emperor Jar, the power of the Emperor Jar would become even more tyrannical. With this fragment of the Emperor Jar, I'm afraid that even the 5 Elements Saber Saint, or even the young Emperor, who is half a step away from the celestial realm, will have no choice but to avoid it. Chu Fengmian thought excitedly as he felt the fragment of the Emperor jar in his palm. However, Chu Fengmian still resisted the idea of integrating the fragment into the jar and put it into the empty ring. At this critical moment, it was not the time to fuse this fragment into the Renhuang jar. His goal was not just to get the fragment of the Emperor jar. After Chu Fengmian put the fragment of the Emperor jar into his empty ring, he looked at the chest of Demon Emperor Shuexia. The Taichu blade had pierced through the Demon Emperor's chest and into his heart. Chu Fengmian glanced at the sharp sword aura on the Taichu blade and did not dare to act rashly. Once the sword aura on the Taichu blade was triggered, it would be difficult for Chu Fengmian to resist it with his current strength. Chu Fengmian asked in his mind, "Elder Fan, how do I retrieve the Taichu blade?" The Taichu blade has been eroded by the Demon Emperor's demonic will, but you have the hilt. As long as you use the hilt's power, it will be enough to draw the Taichu blade out. Elder Fan's voice resounded in Chu Fengmian's mind. It seemed that Elder Fan had left the Great Strength Hall, but in fact, he had quietly returned to Chu Fengmian's body. After all, Elder Fan was only an artifact spirit. The physical body he had condensed was only a shape condensed from spiritual power. He hid in Chu Fengmian's body seamlessly, and no one could come out. The hilt? After hearing Elder Fan's words, Chu Fengmian moved his palm and the hilt of the Taichu blade fell into his palm. The moment the hilt appeared, the Taichu blade that was stuck in the Demon Emperor's heart began to tremble violently, as if it was about to fly out of the Demon Emperor's heart. "Kid, give me your life. We can't let this kid take the blade." At that moment, two figures suddenly charged towards Chu Fengmian's body. Two powerful Elder Fans, a saint's attack of the Taichu blade Taichu. Xiao Di and the Five Elements Saber Saint had finally joined forces and killed the Buddha figure summoned by the Celestial Realm Jade Talisman. However, before they could rejoice, they saw Chu Fengmian collect the Taichu blade. In their eyes, this scene was simply infuriating. The two of them had just joined hands to deal with Chu Fengmian, yet Chu Fengmian still managed to survive. Especially when they looked at Chu Fengmian's aura and saw that he didn't seem to be injured at all. They immediately understood that they had been deceived by Chu Fengmian. How could the two half-step Celestial Realm experts tolerate being fooled by Chu Fengmian? It was especially so when Chu Fengmian's current strength was already so overwhelming. The power contained within the Taichu sword was something that both of them could clearly see. If Chu Fengmian obtained the Taichu blade, it wouldn't be so easy for them to kill Chu Fengmian. Without any hesitation or conversation, the young emperor and the Five Elements Saber Saint once again joined forces to kill Chu Fengmian first. The two killing moves bombarded Chu Fengmian at the same time, surrounding him from all directions and leaving him with nowhere to run. However, just as the two killing moves were about to hit Chu Fengmian, a figure suddenly flew out from Chu Fengmian's body. With a wave of his hand, a sword aura swept out. The two killing moves were completely destroyed by the sword aura. An old man appeared and stood in front of Chu Fengmian, protecting him. "Old man, it's you again? No matter where you come from, you'll die if you dare to protect this kid today. Let's attack together and kill him. Rumble!" The Five Elements Saber Saint and the young emperor attacked again, bombarding Elder Fan. It was almost impossible to ignore Elder Fan and attack Chu Fengmian directly. It was better to concentrate their firepower and kill Elder Fan first. Even if Elder Fan was a half-step Celestial Realm expert, there were two of them now. 2 against 1, it was enough to kill Elder Fan. Elder Fan's gaze was also very serious. He didn't dare to relax even though he was facing 2 enemies alone. He displayed thousands of sword techniques and attack. "I can only hold on for 1 minute. Hurry up and take it." At the same time, Chu Fengmian recalled Elder Fan's words. 1 minute was Elder Fan's limit in a 1 versus 2 fight. War Dragon Body. Soaring Serpent Transformation. Rumble. The bloodline power in Chu Fengmian's body was fully activated. The power of the soaring serpent bloodline was also activated to the extreme, causing Chu Fengmian's strength to reach its peak. An enormous and tyrannical power erupted from Chu Fengmian's body. This wave of spiritual power suddenly condensed into a huge spiritual power hand in Chu Fengmian's palm and grabbed at the absolute primordium sword edge. The spiritual energy hand gripped the primordial blade tightly and exerted all its strength to pull the primordial blade out of Demon Emperor Blood Demon's heart. Boom! However, as the primordial sword edge was pulled out bit by bit, Chu Fengmian felt a tyrannical demonic intent erupting from Demon Emperor Blood Demon's heart. Demon Emperor Blood Demon's heart was beating like this. Demon Emperor Blood Demon is not dead? How is this possible? Chu Fengmian was shocked when he saw Demon Emperor Blood Demon's heart suddenly beating. If Demon Emperor Blood Demon was still alive and resurrected, even if there were 10,000 Chu Fengmians, they would still be killed by Demon Emperor Blood Demon. Chu Fengmian, take Demon Emperor Blood Demon's heart with you. Otherwise, Demon Emperor Blood Demon might really come back to life. There is a strange object in his heart that is maintaining the vitality of his heart. Xing Xian's voice suddenly sounded. He sounded a little flustered. If Demon Emperor Blood Demon was truly resurrected, everyone would die. Then, anyone in the Great Strength Hall would die. In the eyes of a former Devil Emperor, a half-step celestial being was just an ant. Chapter 1683. There's a strange object in the heart? When Chu Fengmian heard Xing Xian's words, he suddenly realized that there was indeed a pure life force in Demon Emperor Blood Demon's heart. It was this life force that had been maintaining the life force of the evil Blood Demon Emperor's heart. This life force must have been suppressed by the absolute beginning sword, which was why it couldn't be seen. Now that Chu Fengmian had pulled out part of the absolute beginning sword, the strong life force in the evil Blood Demon Emperor's heart seemed to be reviving the evil Blood Demon Emperor. The wound on the evil Blood Demon Emperor's heart was healing bit by bit. Although it was slow, Chu Fengmian could feel that the day of the evil Blood Demon Emperor's rebirth would be the day of the evil Blood Demon Emperor's rebirth. It would be a real disaster at that time. What the hell is this? Chu Fengmian glanced over and vaguely saw the shape of a centipede on the evil Blood Demon Emperor's heart. Although it was called a centipede, it had 6 wings on its back. This centipede was hiding in the evil Blood Demon Emperor's heart, emitting a strong life force that was healing the wound on the evil Blood Demon Emperor's heart. 6-winged centipede? It's a 6-winged centipede? Chu Fengmian's face fell. He had seen the 6-winged centipede and the hidden gold essence in the treasure light before the temple opened. They were 2 supreme treasures of the body refining path. Chu Fengmian had obtained the hidden gold essence from the mausoleum of the golden-bodied Buddha. He had also been looking for the 6-winged centipede. He had not expected the Lu-Yi centipede to be hiding in the evil Blood Demon Emperor's heart. It seemed like the evil Blood Demon Emperor had done it on purpose to maintain his life force. Even after hundreds of thousands of years, the evil Blood Demon Emperor's heart was still beating. He might even be reborn. The best way to stop the evil Blood Demon Emperor's rebirth was to take the heart. Primogenitor's second form. Chu Fengmian gathered the power of the Battle Dragon bloodline in his palm and slammed it down on the heart of Demon Emperor Shuexia. Boom! When the second form of the Primogenitor's second form struck the evil Blood Demon Emperor's heart, a large amount of demonic intent began to condense and formed a perfect barrier with the beating of the heart. The barrier looked like it was made of 129,600 small crystals, like an undying true body. The power of Chu Fengmian's Primogenitor's second move bombarded the 129,600 small crystals. However, the power of the barrier didn't weaken in the slightest. Not enough power. Chu Fengmian immediately understood that the power of the Primogenitor's second move wasn't enough to break through the 129,600 small crystals. Now that Chu Fengmian had condensed his half-step immortal body, he naturally knew how powerful the barrier made of small crystals was. Unless it was a single strike that could break through the critical point, otherwise, no matter how powerful the attack was, it would be dispersed by the 129,600 small crystals. However, the demon Emperor Blood Demon was a dead man who had been dead for hundreds of thousands of years. The power contained in Demon Emperor Shuexie's body was less than a millionth of his peak. Chu Fengmian had just used the second move of the primogenitor, which was enough to slightly shake the barrier around Fiend Emperor Shuexie. As long as it was a more powerful attack, there would be a chance to break it. 10,000 sword strike. Whoosh. Immediately, 10,000 sword chi flew out from the world's edge sword case behind Chu Fengmian. Chu Fengmian held the ancestral Dragon Supreme sword in his hand. The wind spiritual power entwined around the ancestral Dragon Supreme sword. The sword chi was attracted by the wind spiritual power and attached to the ancestral Dragon Supreme sword one after another. 4 directions Hurricane sword. Chu Fengmian's sword essence was all added to the sword. With one strike, dozens of sword chi hurricanes bombarded the barrier formed by the 129,600 small crystals above Demon Emperor Blood Demon's heart. Rumble. When the two forces collided, the throne that the evil Blood Devil Emperor was sitting on shook violently. The trembling of the small crystals was much stronger than before. Under this kind of power, Chu Fengmian saw that the perfect barrier formed by the small crystals had already begun to crack. The invincible barrier formed by Demon Emperor Blood Demon's heart had already been broken. It only needed a little more power to tear it apart. Sword rise. When Chu Fengmian saw this, he raised his sword once again. The power of the stars in the sky descended from the sky and slowly condensed on the tip of the sword. The fifth move of the 9 mysterious swordsmanship, 7 kills. Rumble. When the power of the stars on the sword was condensed to the limit, Chu Fengmian's sword fell. The dazzling sword light pierced the barrier formed by the small crystals. Along with the crack, it pierced into the deepest part of the barrier. The power of the stars in the sky turned into the 2 words, 7 kills, and penetrated into the deepest part of the crack. The 2 words, 7 kills, contained the purest and most overbearing power. When they penetrated into the cracks on the perfect barrier formed by 129,600 small crystals became even bigger. Numerous cracks had already appeared on the perfect barrier. Break! Chu Fengmian shouted angrily. He struck with both swords. The supreme swordsmanship recorded in the 9 regions swordsmanship condensed on the 2 swords and pierced the barrier. Crack! A clear and melodious voice rang out. Following that, more and more similar voices rang out. Above the heart of the evil Blood Demon Emperor, the perfect barrier formed by 129,600 small crystals shattered. The heart was no longer obstructed by Chu Fengmian. Chu Fengmian put away his swords and grabbed at the heart. The heart fell into Chu Fengmian's palm. A tyrannical and pure demonic intent immediately shrouded Chu Fengmian's mind. The demonic intent contained in Demon Emperor Blood Demon's heart wanted to erode Chu Fengmian's body. Suppress. Chu Fengmian's Dao heart was tough. He woke up immediately and condensed his dragon power into a huge pagoda to suppress the heart. Immediately, Chu Fengmian put the heart of the evil Blood Demon Emperor into his spatial ring. Die, old man! On the other side, Elder Fan's figure was sent flying by a huge force. Old Fan had already reached his limit in a 1 versus 2 battle. He would not be able to hold on any longer. Elder Fan, let's go! Chu Fengmian hurriedly called out to Elder Fan. At the same time, a long river of spiritual stones appeared in his palm and turned into pure spiritual power that was injected into Elder Fan's body. Chapter 1684. Old Man Fan's aura recovered quite a bit as soon as the spiritual energy entered his body. It would have taken a normal person some time to recover from such an injury. However, Elder Fan wasn't a human, but a weapon spirit. As long as his spiritual energy was restored, he would be able to recover from any serious injury. Elder Fan glanced at the Blood Demon Emperor's body and saw that the primordial sword had disappeared without a trace. He knew that Chu Fengmian was gone. His figure flickered as he grabbed Chu Fengmian, turned into a beam of sword light, and flew out of the Hall of Great Strength. "Old man, you're still trying to escape?" The Five Elements Saber Saint smiled maliciously and chased after Elder Fan, intending to stop him. But then, beams of sword light suddenly flew out from outside the Hall of Great Strength. Elder Fan had already prepared an escape route. Each of these beams of sword light was extremely difficult to deal with even for a peak figure like Emperor Gu of the Nine Tribulations. Now that hundreds of beams of sword light had suddenly blasted out, the Five Elements Saber Saint was forced to retreat. These beams of sword light blocked the entrance of the Hall of Great Strength. Xiao Di and the Five Elements Saber Saint could only watch as Chu Fengmian and Elder Fan left. "Damn it, we've been tricked by that brat again." The Five Elements Saber Saint's face turned cold. As a half-step celestial realm powerhouse, this was the first time he'd disregarded his status to ambush Chu Fengmian. But this time, he'd failed to kill Chu Fengmian time and again. It was a humiliation to him. At this moment, Xiao Di no longer cared about Chu Fengmian's escape light. He could see that it was almost impossible to catch Chu Fengmian now. The situation in the Pure Land Buddhist temple was extremely complicated. He might not be able to catch Chu Fengmian even if he went after him. Therefore, Xiao Di rushed in the direction of the Blood Demon Emperor's skeleton. Chu Fengmian had obtained the Blood Demon Emperor's heart, the primordial sword, and the Emperor Jar fragment, but the Blood Demon Emperor's skeleton was still a supreme treasure. If Xiao Di wanted to condense an immortal true body, he had to obtain the skeleton. "Damn it!" The Five Elements Saber Saint shouted angrily and rushed over. This time, he failed to kill Chu Fengmian. If he failed to obtain the Demon Emperor Blood Demon skeleton, the Five Elements Saber Saint's efforts would be in vain. In the Hall of Great Strength, in order to fight for the remains of the evil demon Emperor Shui Wu, waves after waves of tyrannical power erupted once again. Of course, Chu Fengmian didn't care about any of this. He had already earned a lot from this trip. The primordial blade and the fragment of the Renhuang jar were items that Chu Fengmian had to obtain. However, the heart of the demonic Blood Emperor was a pleasant surprise for Chu Fengmian. The heart of the evil Blood Demon Emperor contained an incomparably tyrannical power. Within the heart there was a six-winged centipede. Now that Chu Fengmian had the concealed gold essence and the six-winged centipede, Chu Fengmian could refine these two supreme treasures together and use them to condense Chu Fengmian's physical body. It's a pity that I didn't get the skeleton. Otherwise, with the Blood Demon Emperor's skeleton, I would have a great chance of condensing an immortal true body. Chu Fengmian muttered to himself. It was within Chu Fengmian's expectations that he didn't get the Blood Demon Emperor's skeleton. In fact, Chu Fengmian didn't have the opportunity to obtain it at that time. The demonic will contained in the skeleton was even more tyrannical than the one in the heart. Chu Fengmian couldn't break this demonic will in a short period of time. If Xiao Di was alone, Old Fan might have been able to hold on until then. However, with the Five Elements Saber Saint, Chu Fengmian had already reached his limit by obtaining the heart of the evil Blood Demon Emperor. However, obtaining the heart of the evil Blood Demon Emperor was already a pleasant surprise. Chu Fengmian had also achieved his goal. Even if Xiao Di had obtained the skeleton of the evil Blood Demon Emperor, without the heart, he wouldn't be able to condense an immortal true body. At most, he would be able to condense a half-step immortal true body like Chu Fengmian. In this way, Xiao Di's time to enter the celestial realm would be greatly delayed. This was enough for Chu Fengmian to breathe a sigh of relief. What he lacked now was time. As long as Chu Fengmian had enough time, he could even contend against Xiao Di. This time, Chu Fengmian had obtained a lot of benefits in the Tibetan land. As long as he left the Tibetan land and returned to the Sword Principle sect, Chu Fengmian would have the opportunity to challenge the Nine Tribulations Emperor Gu. Once he stepped into the Nine Tribulations Emperor Gu's realm, Chu Fengmian would have the qualifications to be on par with a half-step Celestial Realm expert. He might even be able to defeat a half-step Celestial Realm expert. In this Tibetan land, the biggest treasure trove, the Pure Land Buddhist Temple, had already been opened. It was likely that all the treasures in this treasure trove had been opened and were about to be taken away. It was about time for them to leave. "Young master, I need to rest for a while." Elder Fan brought Chu Fengmian to the entrance of the Pure Land Buddhist Temple. His figure slowly dissipated, leaving only an incomparably weak voice. Elder Fan's body was seriously damaged, and his strength had weakened a lot. This time, fighting two people alone had consumed a lot of his strength. He was about to fall into a deep sleep. "Thank you, Elder Fan." This time, Chu Fengmian was able to obtain the fragment of the Emperor Jar, the Taichu blade, and the heart of the evil blood demon emperor, all thanks to Elder Fan's help. Chu Fengmian's mind moved, and a river of spiritual stones flew out. Elder Fan didn't stand on ceremony. He needed a lot of spiritual stones to recover, so he waved his hand. The river of spiritual stones was collected by Elder Fan. Then, it turned into a ray of light and drilled into Chu Fengmian's body. Chu Fengmian glanced around, then moved his feet and stepped into the Pure Land Buddhist Temple. A large number of demons were still gathered outside the Pure Land Buddhist Temple. Many of these demons had gained a lot in the Pure Land Buddhist Temple. In the Pure Land Buddhist Temple, apart from the biggest treasure trove, the skeleton of the evil blood demon emperor, there were also the treasures that the Pure Land sect had accumulated, as well as the treasures that the evil blood demon emperor had accumulated. However, Chu Fengmian didn't care about these treasures, so he didn't collect them. Almost all of them were taken away by the demons. Now, a large number of demons were gathered outside the Pure Land Buddhist Temple, discussing. Suddenly, Chu Fengmian's figure appeared in the Pure Land Buddhist Temple. A human warrior suddenly walked out and landed in the midst of the devil race. A human? A human cultivator? Why is he here? Chapter 1685. The sudden appearance of a human ancient martial art practitioner in this group of ancient martial art practitioners instantly attracted the attention of all the ancient martial art practitioners. "There's a human in the Buddhist temple of the Pure Land? Is he Chu Fengmian?" Suddenly, a demon cried out. His voice was filled with joy, as if he had discovered a huge treasure trove. In order to arrest Chu Fengmian, the young emperor had told all the demons about Chu Fengmian's appearance. Anyone who killed Chu Fengmian would be rewarded handsomely. "It's Chu Fengmian? The one the young emperor wants to kill." Hearing this demon's words, the other demons seemed to have woken up from a dream. After knowing Chu Fengmian's identity, they looked at Chu Fengmian with murderous eyes. Their eyes were full of greed, as if they were looking at a moving treasure. "Quick, let's attack together and kill him. Don't let him escape." A few demons who were closest to Chu Fengmian roared greedily and attacked Chu Fengmian. There were no weaklings among the demons gathered outside the Buddhist temple of the Pure Land. The weakest was at the level of the 8 Tribulations Emperor Gu, while the 9 Tribulations Emperor Gu could be found everywhere. The moment they saw that Chu Fengmian was only at the level of the 8 Tribulations Emperor Gu, they couldn't help but attack. Several demon palms attacked Chu Fengmian from all directions. "How dare you attack me with just a few puny demons? Are you courting death?" Chu Fengmian's eyes were cold. He couldn't defeat the half-step Celestial Realm experts like the young Emperor and the 5 Elements Saber Saint. However, the 9 Tribulations Emperor Gu, even the overlord of the 9 Tribulations Emperor Gu like Long Maluo, was like an ant in Chu Fengmian's eyes. He could crush them to death if he wanted to. Chu Fengmian stood there, facing the onslaught of demon palms. his expression didn't change at all. The world's edge sword case on his back suddenly opened. Several rays of sword chi flew out. Whoosh, whoosh. The devil palms that were bombarding the sky were all shattered by these sword chi. At the same time, these sword chi also slashed towards the devil race around Chu Fengmian. Bang bang bang! Wherever the sword chi passed, the demons were killed by the sword chi, leaving behind only clouds of blood mist. In the center of the blood mist, there were even empty rings. Chu Fengmian reached out and grabbed the clouds of blood mist, as well as the spatial rings within them, before they all disappeared into Chu Fengmian's hand. This kid's strength is only that of 8 tribulations Emperor Gu. How can he be so terrifying? The demons were dumbfounded at this scene. Even if they weren't overlords like Long Mo Luo, they were still Emperor Gu of the 9 tribulations. In the devil race, he could be regarded as a powerhouse, but now, he had been killed by Chu Fengmian. Don't be afraid. This brat is alone. If we attack together, he won't be able to escape. Another devil clan member shouted. The fear in the hearts of the devil clan members dissipated significantly. Indeed, no matter how strong Chu Fengmian was, he was alone. There were hundreds of demons gathered here. How could they be afraid of Chu Fengmian, who was just one person? Especially outside the Pure Land Buddhist temple, it was a devil's domain. In such an environment, the devil race could erupt with even more tyrannical power. Kill. Billowing devil will condensed. At this moment, all the devils attacked at the same time. The billowing devil will slowly condensed in the air. Among the devil race, even if there were thousands of changes, they all originated from the same ancestor, the 10 heavenly demons. All the devil race were born from the descendants of the 10 heavenly demons. Their power was originally from the same source. Because of this, the power of the countless devils working together was more terrifying than the power of the warriors working together. The billowing devil will condensed in the air and slowly appeared, turning into the appearance of a tyrannical devil. This devil was ancient and tyrannical. It contained the power of the ancestor of all devils. The 10 heavenly demons. Chu Fengmian saw the devil condensed by the devil will. He felt the aura on it and recognized that it was definitely one of the 10 heavenly demons. Among the 10 heavenly demons, the most powerful one was the Earth Heavenly Demon. The combined power of hundreds of devils actually summoned the phantom of the Earth Heavenly Demon. Although the 10 heavenly demons had fallen thousands of years ago, their power still flowed in the blood of the devil race. The strength of this Earth Heavenly Demon was infinitely close to the half-step celestial being realm. It was several times more tyrannical than the overlords of the 9 tribulations Emperor Gu, such as Long Mo Luo. It roared and attacked Chu Fengmian. In the palm of the Earth Heavenly Demon, an ancient stick condensed. It seemed to be the weapon of the Earth Heavenly Demon. It smashed towards Chu Fengmian. The power of the stick had the power to break the sky and the earth. The space around Chu Fengmian was almost shattered by this power. It's just the phantom of the Earth Heavenly Demon. Kill it! Chu Fengmian watched as the Earth Heavenly Demon's staff smashed down. A cold smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. The moment he said the word kill, a dazzling sword light soared into the sky. Wherever the sword light passed, everything was severed. The stick that was smashing down was cut into 2 by the sword light. In the next moment, the sword light slashed at the thick Earth Heavenly Demon's silhouette, slicing it in half at the waist. The condensed demonic will spread out in all directions. Countless demons fled in panic when they saw this scene. Flee? Chu Fengmian's mind flickered. Hundreds of sword chi flew out of the sky-edge sword case and slashed towards them. In an instant, the hundreds of devils who had just besieged Chu Fengmian were killed by the sword chi without exception. Chu Fengmian waved his hand and collected the blood chi of the hundreds of devils. Then, Chu Fengmian's figure flickered and left the valley in a flash. He returned to the hidden place. I've gained a lot from this adventure. It's time to find a chance to refine the seventh fragment of the Emperor Jar. Chu Fengmian was relieved after returning to the hidden place. The hidden place was so big that it would be difficult for the young emperor and the five elements Saber Saint to find Chu Fengmian even if they left the Great Strength Hall. With Chu Fengmian's current strength, as long as he did not encounter a half-step celestial being realm master, he could almost do whatever he wanted. He was worthy of the title of Invincible Emperor. He was almost invincible in the Emperor realm. Once Chu Fengmian integrated the seventh fragment of the Emperor Jar into the Emperor Jar, he would be able to do so, even if Chu Fengmian had not broken through to the Nine Tribulations Emperor Gu. He would at least be a threat to the five elements Saber Saint. Just as Chu Fengmian was about to find a quiet and remote place to put the seventh fragment into the Emperor Jar, Chu Fengmian's body suddenly stopped in the air. Chapter 1686. In Chu Fengmian's body, a jade talisman suddenly lit up. This jade talisman was the communication jade talisman of the Holy Dragon sect. Chu Fengmian injected spiritual energy into it, and Qing Meng's voice was transmitted. Be careful of the people of the Sacred Academy sect. Chu Fengmian could hear a hint of anxiousness in Qing Meng's voice. People of the Sacred Academy sect? Did the people of the Sacred Academy sect attack senior sister Qing Meng? Chu Fengmian's eyes suddenly changed. Judging from the anxiety in Qing Meng's voice, Qing Meng was probably in big trouble. And it seemed that all of this was the doing of the Sacred Academy sect. Chu Fengmian originally thought that Qing Meng was with Emperor Yan, and the two Emperor Gu of the Nine Tribulations should not be in any danger. It seemed that Chu Fengmian had underestimated the hostility of the Sacred Academy sect towards the Holy Dragon sect. Senior sister Qing Meng and Emperor Yan should still be in this treasure trove. Chu Fengmian injected spiritual energy into the jade talisman again. Suddenly, an image appeared in Chu Fengmian's mind. This jade talisman could detect each other's location. Chu Fengmian observed for a while and saw that Qing Meng and Emperor Yan were in this treasure trove, less than 100 miles away from Chu Fengmian. Let's go and take a look. He was not in a hurry to integrate the fragments of the Emperor Jar. With Qing Meng's personality, she would not use the jade talisman to inform Chu Fengmian if she was not in great danger. Chu Fengmian put the fragments of the Emperor Jar into his spatial ring. Then, he turned into a ray of light and shuttled back and forth in this treasure trove. As Chu Fengmian's strength grew stronger, the restrictions of the Buddhist sect in this treasure trove became weaker and weaker. Chu Fengmian rushed over the distance of 100 miles in less than 10 minutes. In a mountain range 100 miles away, several figures shuttled back and forth, bursting out waves of spiritual energy. Obviously, there were experts fighting there. The aftermath of the battle was extremely powerful. Many Emperor Gu of the Nine Tribulations saw this scene and watched from the side, but no one dared to rush in. In this battle, the strength of two martial artists was the most dazzling. It was almost 1 against 2, 1 against 3. Facing the siege of many Emperor Gu, they did not show any weakness. However, the enemies of these two martial artists were dozens of ancient emperors. Under the relentless pursuit, the two of them were forced to flee and avoid battle. They were unable to contend against the ancient emperors. Qing Meng, Emperor Yan. Chu Fengmian looked over and saw that these two warriors were Qing Meng and Emperor Yan. The aura of the two of them was much stronger than before they entered the Tibetan land. They had almost reached the peak level of the Nine Tribulations Emperor Gu, which was enough to be on an equal footing with the likes of Little Yao and Wang Hanyi. In particular, the aura on Qing Meng's body had surpassed the peak of the Nine Tribulations Emperor Gu. She could be considered an overlord among the Nine Tribulations Emperor Gu, just like Long Maluo. As long as she took another step forward, there was a possibility of breaking through to the half-step celestial realm. Qing Meng was indeed a disciple of the Holy Dragon sect. The peerless Emperor Gu was extremely talented. As long as she had the opportunity, her strength would soar. However, 2 fists were no match for 4 hands. Behind them, there were dozens of ancient emperors chasing after the 2 of them. Qing Meng and Emperor Yen could only retreat as they fought. They could not fight head-on. They are from the Sacred Academy sect. Seeing the outfits of the dozens of Emperor Gu, Chu Fengmian understood their origins. They were the saints of the Sacred Academy sect. No wonder Qing Meng would tell Chu Fengmian to be careful of the Sacred Academy sect through the Jade Talisman. It turned out that she and Emperor Yen were being chased by this group of Sacred Academy sect saints. In terms of strength, the Sacred Academy sect could be considered the top force in the Holy Dragon Mystery Dimension. Although the disciples of the Holy Dragon sect were heaven-defying, there were too few of them. Only geniuses were qualified to join. Most of the geniuses in the Holy Dragon Mystery Dimension belonged to the Sacred Academy sect. As a result, the Sacred Academy sect was very powerful. Among the dozens of Emperor Gu, there were 7 Emperor Gu of the 9 Tribulations. However, one of the Emperor Gu of the 9 Tribulations was extremely powerful. He was stronger than almost all of the 9 Tribulations' Emperor Gu. He stood at the peak of the Emperor realm. Even Long Mo Luo, the overlord of the 9 Tribulations' Emperor Gu, was not as powerful as this person. What a powerful person! There is actually such a master among the 9 Tribulations' Emperor Gu? Chu Fengmian originally thought that Long Mo Luo was already a master who stood at the peak of the 9 Tribulations' Emperor Gu. However, the Emperor Gu in front of him was much stronger than Long Mo Luo in terms of strength. Moreover, this person was extremely young. He was not even 100 years old. He was considered an extremely young genius among the Emperor Gu. This young Emperor Gu was the leader of this group. Under his orders, these Emperor Gu had been chasing after Qing Meng and Emperor Yen. Qing Meng, you don't have to struggle anymore. The destruction of the Holy Dragon sect is already destined. Surrender to this emperor today, and become this emperor's woman. This emperor can give you a way out. The young Emperor Gu was extremely powerful. He sneered and waved his hand. Spirit energy condensed and turned into a huge spirit energy cage, sealing Qing Meng and Emperor Yen inside. In your dreams! Qing Meng shouted angrily when she heard the young Emperor Gu's words. She turned her head and said to Emperor Yen beside her. Then, she condensed her spirit energy and turned it into a green light. She slashed at the spirit energy cage. Emperor Yen, let's attack together and break out. This green light was like a sharp blade in Qing Meng's hand. It was enough to cut through everything. However, when it slashed at the spirit energy cage, the spirit energy cage only shook a little. It did not break. Emperor Yen attacked together, but the result was the same. They could not break out of the spirit energy cage. This result caused Qing Meng and the Yen Emperor's expressions to become extremely ugly. Don't waste your energy. Other than that old man Long Qianjue, the rest of the people in the Holy Dragon sect are just trash in front of this emperor. The young man snorted when he saw this scene. Or do you intend to rely on that trash Chu Fengmian to save you? That trash is probably dead by now. When you are dead, you can reunite with him. Since you're so stubborn, I'll kill you all. The young Emperor Gu shouted coldly. His eyes were filled with killing intent. His body flashed and he rushed over. Retreat. Qing Meng and Emperor Yan's faces changed. They quickly condensed their spirit energy and turned it into a big shield to block in front of them. Their eyes were filled with despair. Chapter 1687. The young Emperor Gu was much stronger than the 2 of them. Even if the 2 of them joined forces, they might not be a match for him. Moreover, there were dozens of Emperor Gu glaring at them from the side. The 2 of them had no way to retreat. They were almost forced into a situation of certain death. Young Master is invincible. Seeing the young Emperor Gu's powerful strength, the dozens of Emperor Gu around them shouted loudly. Hearing the shouts, the young Emperor Gu's face became even more ferocious. He laughed sinisterly. If the two of you are unwilling to submit, then die. Those who submit to me will prosper, and those who oppose me will perish. The young Emperor Gu laughed sinisterly. He gathered spiritual energy in his hands and struck out palm after palm. Every palm print contained an extremely strong power. As it bombarded continuously, the spiritual energy barrier that Qing Meng and the Yan Emperor had condensed in front of them, their final defense, was mercilessly smashed apart. Invincible! Invincible! The surrounding Emperor Gu shouted loudly. You people of the Holy Dragon sect will accompany me on the road to the Netherworld. The young Emperor Gu laughed loudly. He moved his right hand and another huge palm print came down. He was ready to kill Qing Meng and Emperor Yan. How dare you kill the people of the Holy Dragon sect? How dare a few good-for-nothings speak so arrogantly? A disdainful voice suddenly sounded from the sky. Dozens of sword chi fell from the sky and slashed towards the young Emperor Gu's palm print. The powerful palm print was destroyed mercilessly by the dozens of sword chi. At the same time, countless sword chi suddenly slashed towards the surrounding Emperor Gu, who had attacked Qing Meng and Emperor Yan. One by one, the saints of the Saint Academy sect were slaughtered mercilessly by the sword aura. The air was filled with the stench of blood. Who is it? The young Emperor Gu's expression changed drastically when he saw the sword chi approaching. He suddenly exerted all of his strength, and his strength became countless times stronger. He held a long spear in his hand and pierced it towards the sky. The dozens of sword chi that had besieged the Holy Son of the Saint Academy were all destroyed by the long spear and exploded in the air. This caused Chu Fengmian to raise his eyebrows slightly. This young man was definitely the most tyrannical Nine Tribulations Emperor Gu that Chu Fengmian had ever seen. However, in this short period of time, the disciples of the Saint Academy sect had already suffered heavy losses. Out of the 50 saints of the Saint Academy sect, less than half of them were left. Brat, you deserve to die. The young Emperor Gu looked at the bloody mist around him, and his eyes were filled with killing intent. The disciples that the Sacred Academy had painstakingly nurtured had died so easily under Chu Fengmian's sword aura. These saints of the Sacred Academy sect had obtained many fortuitous encounters in the hidden ground. As long as they returned to the Sacred Academy sect and were nurtured, their futures would be limitless. But now, Chu Fengmian had killed half of the saints of the Sacred Academy sect with a single move. This loss was much greater than what they had gained in the 9 regions. This was also because the young Emperor Gu had acted in time. Otherwise, all the saints of the Sacred Academy sect would have died at Chu Fengmian's hands. Is that so? This is the consequence of making an enemy out of the Holy Dragon sect. Chu Fengmian said lightly when he heard this. His tone was extremely relaxed. In the face of the young Emperor Gu's fury, Chu Fengmian wasn't the least bit nervous. In fact, he was even disdainful. Chu Fengmian glanced at the young Emperor Gu and the other surviving saints of the Sacred Academy sect and sneered. And you, all of you, will join them soon. Little bastard, this isn't a place for you to be arrogant. How dare you be arrogant in front of the Sacred Academy sect? You must be courting death. A9 Tribulations Emperor Gu of the Sacred Academy sect shouted angrily when he heard Chu Fengmian's words. But before he could finish his words, a sword light suddenly flashed. The ancestral Dragon Supreme sword in Chu Fengmian's hand was suddenly unsheathed. As the sword light flashed, the head of the Holy Son of the Sacred Academy sect was immediately chopped off. The blood essence of the Holy Son of the Sacred Academy sect burned fiercely. He did not even have the chance to reconstruct his body and died under the sword. So what if I'm arrogant in front of the Sacred Academy sect? Chu Fengmian's lips twitched slightly, revealing a smile. This smile was extremely cold. He killed people casually. These saints of the Sacred Academy sect, a dignified Emperor Gu of the 9 Tribulations, were like ants in front of Chu Fengmian. Chu Fengmian killed whenever he wanted to. He didn't even take the young Emperor Gu seriously and killed in front of him. Little bastard, how dare you be so arrogant? Die for me. The young Emperor Gu's expression was cold. He didn't hesitate at all and suddenly attacked Chu Fengmian. With his status, when had he ever suffered such humiliation? Daring to kill the people of the Sacred Academy sect in front of him was simply a provocation and humiliation to him. The young Emperor Gu moved the long spear in his hand, and a sharp light pierced towards Chu Fengmian's chest. This ray of light was simply unstoppable. There was nothing that could withstand it. Junior brother, be careful. This person is the young master of the Sacred Academy sect, Wu Dao. His spear skills are amazing, and his strength is almost at the half-step celestial being realm. Seeing the young Emperor Gu attack, Qin Meng, who was originally healing, hurriedly stopped and said to Chu Fengmian, "The young master of the Sacred Academy sect, Wu Dao?" The moment Chu Fengmian heard this name, the killing intent on his body intensified. In the Sacred Dragon's secret realm, Luo Shi had been hiding in the sacred ground to avoid a few troubles, and this Wu Dao was one of them. This person had been eyeing Han Yueli and Luo Shi, and even Little Nine. This Wu Dao was originally on Chu Fengmian's must-kill list, but Chu Fengmian had never encountered him. Who would have thought that Chu Fengmian would run into Dao Denier here? On the other side, after hearing Qingming's words, Wu Dao suddenly looked towards Chu Fengmian. His eyes were extremely hot, and the killing intent in them was even more intense. "I was wondering who it was. So you're Chu Fengmian? I've always wanted to kill you, and today you've delivered yourself to me. Just right, I'll let you die with Qin Meng, and let your sect have a companion on the road to the netherworld." Wu Dao's figure flickered and rushed towards Chu Fengmian. The long spear in his hand became even sharper, turning into a sharp light that pierced towards Chu Fengmian. "Want to kill me? Just by relying on a piece of trash like you?" Chu Fengmian looked at the sharp light piercing towards him. Sword intent soared into the sky, and Chu Fengmian suddenly waved the spiritual sword in his hand. Boom! The dazzling sword light was over 1,000 feet long. It slashed towards the sky as though it wanted to tear the sky apart. That indestructible sword light was destroyed by this sword light as though it was made of rotten wood. Chapter 1688. After destroying that sharpness, the 1,000-meter-long sword light continued to slash at Daolus. "What?" Wu Dao was shocked. He did not expect Chu Fengmian to neutralize his sharp radiance, causing him to retreat continuously. However, as the young sect master of the Saint Academy sect, Wu Dao's strength was naturally not that simple. Seeing that his sharp radiance had been neutralized, he retreated continuously while thrusting his long spear forward once again. Buzz! The moment the spear was unleashed, a series of explosions could be heard in the sky. "Eagle soars the sky." The cry of an eagle resounded. The sharp radiance of the spear was like an eagle soaring into the sky, roaring towards Chu Fengmian. The young sect master's spear technique has become even more exquisite. How dare this brat fight with the young sect master? He must be dreaming. Humph, what genius of the Saint Dragon sect. He's nothing in front of the young sect master. Looks like the young sect master is angry this time. This brat will definitely die today. The saints of the Saint Academy sect were discussing amongst themselves. Many of them sneered as they looked at Chu Fengmian, waiting to see how Chu Fengmian would die under Wu Dao's spear. However, the next scene was beyond everyone's imagination. The discussions immediately stopped abruptly. Facing the sharp radiance, Chu Fengmian gently waved his sword, causing an even stronger sword chi to soar into the sky. This sword chi was 10,000 feet long and contained the surging power of the galaxy. With a loud bang, it collided with Wu Dao's eagle soars the sky. Bang! The moment the two forces collided in the air, the result was obvious. Wu Dao's spear was shattered by the collision of the two forces. The rebounding force made Wu Dao almost lose his grip on the long spear in his hand. He took a few steps back, his eyes filled with disbelief. This? How did Brother Chu's strength become so much stronger? The Yen Emperor had just recovered from his injuries. When he saw the scene before him, he could not help but be dumbfounded. Although he had always known that Chu Fengmian was powerful, he did not expect Chu Fengmian's strength to increase so much in such a short period of time. As the young sect master of the Saint Academy sect, Wu Dao was easily defeated by Chu Fengmian. Wu Dao's strength was enough to be called the strongest among the 9 tribulations Emperor Gu in the Saint Dragon secret domain. Otherwise, he would not have been the young sect master of the Saint Academy sect. Previously, when Qing Meng and Yen Emperor joined forces, they could not resist Wu Dao's power. Wu Dao was almost invincible among the 9 tribulation ancient emperors. However, Chu Fengmian had easily forced such a tyrannical person to retreat. It seemed that Chu Fengmian hadn't even used his sword technique. Just a casual swing of the sword contained such tyrannical power, forcing tyrannical to retreat. Qing Meng's gaze was also looking at Chu Fengmian. Her gaze was also incomparably complicated. Even she was unable to see through Chu Fengmian's current strength. You dare to have designs on Luo Shi with such strength? Chu Fengmian looked at Wu Dao with undisguised disdain in his eyes. Little bastard. Looking at Chu Fengmian's disdainful eyes, Wu Dao's heart was filled with boundless anger. A feeling of humiliation took over his heart, making him go crazy. He was Wu Dao, the young sect master of the Saint Academy sect, the most dazzling genius in the history of the Saint Academy sect. He had never been looked down upon like this. Wu Dao looked at Chu Fengmian with eyes that had turned the humiliation in his heart into killing intent. He could not wait to tear Chu Fengmian into pieces. Little bastard, I want you dead. No, I won't kill you. I want you to watch the people around you being tortured to death in front of you. Wu Dao's face was extremely ferocious as he roared crazily. Do you think this is my full strength? I originally wanted to toy with you. Since you're courting death, I'll fulfill your wish. Jade Emperor's soaring secret art. Wu Dao roared. A green mist slowly condensed on his body and surrounded him. In an instant, Wu Dao's aura was completely different from before. This power was already at the level of half-step celestial being realm. Looking at the change in Wu Dao's strength, Chu Fengmian could not help but size him up. Wu Dao's realm should be that of 9 tribulations Emperor Gu. However, a unique secret technique broke out from his body, which forcibly raised his strength to the level of half-step celestial being realm. This kind of strength raised by secret technique could not be compared with a real half-step celestial being realm. But for 9 tribulations Emperor Gu, even a weak half-step celestial being realm was invincible. Jade Emperor's soaring secret art. This is a secret technique created by Jade Emperor, one of the most tyrannical experts in the history of Sacred Academy sect. It is said that Jade Emperor has been struggling to step into the celestial being realm, but he created an extremely powerful secret technique in an attempt to step into the celestial being realm. Once this Jade Emperor's soaring secret art is used, it is enough to raise one's strength by 1 realm. Junior brother, be careful! Qing Meng hurriedly shouted. Half-step celestial being realm was a completely different concept from 9 tribulations Emperor Gu. Wu Dao used the Jade Emperor's soaring secret art to forcibly raise his realm to the half-step celestial being realm. Even the tyrannical 9 tribulations Emperor Gu was not worth mentioning in front of him. No matter how strong Chu Fengmian was now, he still had not reached the level of half-step celestial being realm. In front of this move, it would be difficult for him to resist. It doesn't matter. It's just a secret technique. If it's a real half-step celestial being realm expert, maybe I'll be a little afraid, but if it's a secret technique, Chu Fengmian said with a disdainful smile. Not worth mentioning, Not worth mentioning. As soon as these 4 words came out, Qing Meng was stunned. Emperor Yen was stunned. The holy sons of the Sacred Academy sect, and even Wu Dao were stunned. This was the half-step celestial being realm. Even if it was a secret technique, it was still a half-step celestial being realm expert. The difference in strength between him and the 9 tribulations Emperor Gu and the Emperor realm was like heaven and earth. Is this kid crazy? I'm afraid this kid has never fought with a half-step celestial being realm expert. That's why he's so arrogant. When he knows how powerful young sect master is, he'll kneel down and beg for mercy. Young sect master, kill this kid and avenge the dead disciples of our Sacred Academy sect. When Wu Dao heard Chu Fengmian's words, a mocking smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. His eyes that were full of killing intent became even colder. Chapter 1689. Only Wu Dao himself knew the gap between the half-step celestial realm and the Emperor realm. After he displayed the Jade Emperor Ascension secret art, the change in his strength was definitely not just a few times, but a completely different one. Not to mention that Chu Fengmian was only an 8 tribulation Emperor Gu. Even if Chu Fengmian was a 9 tribulation Emperor Gu, he was just an ant in front of Wu Dao. You're courting death. Wu Dao spat out these 4 words coldly. At this moment, his body suddenly moved. The long spear in his hand shook violently, and with the infusion of his spirit qi, it began to change. The originally wooden long spear, with the infusion of Wu Dao's spirit qi, suddenly showed a jade-like appearance. The Jade Emperor's spear. He actually obtained the Jade Emperor's weapon. The Jade Emperor's inheritance has all fallen into Wu Dao's hands. Qing Meng's face changed slightly. The Jade Emperor was a figure more tyrannical than Emperor Yen and Emperor Yi. He created the Jade Emperor Ascension secret art, and with this Jade Emperor spear, he was an existence that could fight with a real celestial realm expert in that era. Now Wu Dao had activated the Jade Emperor Ascension secret art and injected his spirit qi into the Jade Emperor spear. It was enough to erupt the most tyrannical power of the Jade Emperor spear. Wu Dao rushed towards Chu Fengmian with the Jade Emperor spear in his hand. He aimed the spear at Chu Fengmian's chest and stabbed mercilessly. 3,000 worlds! The long spear vibrated. In front of the Jade Emperor spear, even a small world would be penetrated by this spear. There was no escape. There was no way to stop it. This was the strength that Wu Dao had been hiding. At this moment, he was enraged by Chu Fengmian and used all his strength. Just looking at the power of this spear, it was almost no inferior to the 5 elements divine saber once displayed by the 5 elements saber saint. However, the disdain in Chu Fengmian's eyes remained unchanged as he watched the spear descend. Secret techniques are nothing more than opportunistic abilities, Lin Feng said. As soon as he finished speaking, the sword in Chu Fengmian's hand suddenly moved. Wind spiritual energy slowly condensed and revolved around the sword. Thousands of sword qi flew out from the world's edge sword box on Chu Fengmian's back and wrapped around the blade. I've said it before. In front of me, your strength is not worth mentioning. 4-way hurricane sword. All of you break! Shouted Chu Fengmian coldly. The sword in his hand fell mercilessly. Suddenly, dozens of sword qi gales swept through the air. Streams of sword qi hurricanes, which contained extremely sharp power, swept through everything in the surroundings. The sharp light that was piercing towards Chu Fengmian was mercilessly torn apart. Wu Dao used the Jade Emperor's soaring chant and the Jade Emperor's weapon, the Jade Emperor's spear. However, in front of Chu Fengmian's sword, he couldn't withstand a single blow and was mercilessly torn apart. The sword qi tornadoes didn't slow down in the slightest as they shot toward Dao Denier. What kind of swordsmanship is that? The power of a half-step celestial being realm. This is an immortal technique. You're just an 8 tribulation Emperor Gu. How can you use such a terrifying swordsmanship? Dao Denier looked at Chu Fengmian's four-sided hurricane sword and shouted in disbelief. He used the Jade Emperor's soaring chant. Once he raised his strength to the level of a half-step celestial being, he would be invincible in the Emperor realm. Even if he encountered a half-step celestial being, he might not be at a disadvantage with the Jade Emperor's spear in his hand. But now, in front of Chu Fengmian, he was so vulnerable. The words, "not worth mentioning," perfectly described this scene. Chu Fengmian's eyes remained unchanged. He didn't hide the disdain in his eyes. As long as it wasn't a real half-step celestial being realm master, it was not worth mentioning in front of Chu Fengmian. Even if Dao Denier used the Jade Emperor's soaring chant to raise his realm to the half-step celestial being realm. However, the promotion of a secret technique was still different from a real half-step celestial being realm. Chu Fengmian's current strength was invincible among the 9 Tribulation Emperor Gu. Even if Dao Denier used a secret technique to raise his realm, it would still be easy for Chu Fengmian to kill him. The sword chi hurricanes approached Dao Denier. Dozens of sword chi hurricanes surrounded Dao Denier like an inescapable net. Dao Denier's figure flickered again and again, but he couldn't escape from the shroud of the sword chi hurricanes. This was the most powerful point of the four-sided hurricane sword. Once trapped, there was no way to escape. I don't believe that you are really so tyrannical. Jade Emperor's divine might, spear in 8 directions. Dao Denier shouted coldly. The Jade Emperor's spear in his hand spun again and again, stabbing at the hurricanes around him, trying to tear the sword chi hurricanes apart. However, the sword chi hurricanes seemed to be endless. No matter how Dao Denier tried to tear them apart, he couldn't escape. Destroy! Chu Fengmian looked at Dao Denier, who was still struggling, with a sneer at the corner of his mouth. He suddenly spat out a word. Under this word, Dao Denier's sword chi hurricanes became even more violent. The sword chi hurricanes around Dao Denier became violent in an instant. The sword chi hurricanes kept tearing Dao Denier's body apart. Dao Denier's clothes were torn apart by the sword chi hurricanes. His body was covered with wounds. Under these wounds, sword chi even penetrated Dao Denier's body, destroying his 5 viscera and 6 organs. Puff! Dao Denier spat out a large mouthful of blood essence. His body suddenly exploded, turning into a bloody mist that filled the sky. The strong smell of blood filled the nose of everyone present. The young sect master was defeated? How is this possible? The young sect master is an invincible figure in the Emperor realm. How could he be defeated? Countless holy sons of the Sacred Academy sect shouted in disbelief. They felt like they were dreaming when they saw this scene. The scene in front of them was simply beyond their wildest dreams. The young sect master of the Sacred Academy sect, Dao Denier, was so vulnerable in front of Chu Fengmian. Even if he had activated the Jade Emperor Ascension secret art and raised his strength to the level of a half-step celestial being with the Jade Emperor spear in his hand, his body was still blown apart by Chu Fengmian. Brother Chu's strength is too terrifying. This is already the strength of a half-step celestial being. Emperor Yen looked at this scene and muttered to himself. He was stuttering as he spoke, obviously frightened by this scene. Dao Denier was definitely a famous genius in the Daluo star field. He was one of the most outstanding genius cultivators. Especially now, in terms of realm, Chu Fengmian was only in the realm of the 8 Tribulation Emperor Gu, which was lower than Dao Denier. Once Chu Fengmian stepped into the 9 Tribulation Emperor Gu or even the half-step celestial being realm, who could compete with Chu Fengmian? Chapter 1690. Little bastard. I want you dead. Hearing these discussions, Wu Dao almost went mad with anger. Ever since he joined the Sacred Academy sect, he had always been an invincible figure. Even if he failed, he had never been defeated to such an extent. Waves of Jade Emperor's power erupted from his body, shrouding the blood mist around him. He wanted to condense the blood essence and reconstruct his body. The blood mist condensed in the air, and Wu Dao's body was instantly reconstructed. The reconstructed body looked even stronger than before. You still want to reconstruct your body in front of me? Chu Fengmian sneered and waved his hand. All of a sudden, an incomparably huge force fell from the sky and bombarded Wu Dao's body. Wu Dao's newly reconstructed body was once again shattered by the War Dragon's claw. Wu Dao's blood essence was crushed by the Battle Dragon's claw, and he was pinned to the ground. No matter how hard he struggled, he could not escape from the Battle Dragon's claw. Save the young sect master. Go and spread the news. The surrounding saints of the Saint Academy sect saw this scene and attacked Chu Fengmian. Waves of spiritual energy condensed into countless killing moves, bombarding Chu Fengmian. A bunch of ants. I didn't want to kill you, but it seems like you're courting death. Chu Fengmian's eyes turned cold. These saints of the Saint Academy sect posed no threat to Chu Fengmian, and Chu Fengmian disdained to deal with them. But now they dared to obstruct Chu Fengmian, which meant that they were courting death. Tianji. Rumble. The power of the stars condensed in the sword in Chu Fengmian's hand, and Chu Fengmian slashed out. This sword qi and the power of the stars condensed together. The sword qi slashed out in all directions, and in the next moment, it turned into a Milky Way that was tens of thousands of feet wide. All the incoming martial techniques were mercilessly devoured by the galaxy. All the Shurings of the Sacred Academy sect were sucked into the galaxy in an instant. All of you die. Chu Fengmian snorted coldly. Within the galaxy, countless sword qi burst forth and swept across, destroying the bodies of the saints of the Saint Academy sect one after another. Their essence, blood, and empty rings were also devoured by Chu Fengmian in the Starry River, falling into his hands. Damn it! Damn it! Little bastard, since you dared to kill the holy son of the Sacred Academy sect, you can just wait to be surrounded and killed by the experts of the Sacred Academy sect. Let me tell you, the higher-ups are about to come out of seclusion. When that time comes, it will be the time of your death. Wu Dao roared furiously as he watched Chu Fengmian slaughter all the saints of the Saint Academy sect like crushing dry weeds. The power of the Jade Emperor burst out from his body countless times in an attempt to break free. However, each time, it was mercilessly crushed by the power of the Battle Dragon Claw. High-level elders? Since they dared to attack the Holy Dragon sect, I won't let any of them leave alive. Chu Fengmian ignored Wu Dao's threat. There was indeed a group of extremely ancient and tyrannical experts hidden in the Holy Dragon's secret realm. For example, the Five Elements Saber Saint, a half-step celestial being expert, could be found in the Holy Dragon's secret realm. However, even a half-step celestial being expert did not scare Chu Fengmian as much. His current strength was barely enough to contend with a half-step celestial being expert. Once Chu Fengmian stepped into the Nine Tribulations Emperor Gu, he would not be afraid of a half-step celestial being expert. Now that Chu Fengmian had obtained a large number of treasures from the treasury and killed so many experts, their essence blood had been accumulated by Chu Fengmian. As long as he left the treasury and returned to the Sword Principal sect, Chu Fengmian could immediately go into seclusion and break through to the Nine Tribulations Emperor Gu. At that time, even if a half-step celestial being expert dared to cause trouble, Chu Fengmian would not let him leave. Looking at Chu Fengmian's fearless attitude, Wu Dao started to panic. He originally thought that he could use the upper echelons of the Holy Dragon's secret realm to threaten Chu Fengmian. At least, Chu Fengmian would have scruples and not dare to kill him. After all, he was the young sect master of the Sacred Academy sect and had the entire Sacred Academy sect behind him. If Chu Fengmian killed him, it would be a provocation to the entire Sacred Academy sect. At the very least, the upper echelons of the Sacred Academy sect would definitely avenge him and kill Chu Fengmian. But now, Chu Fengmian did not move at all after hearing the threats, which finally made him panic. Especially when he thought of Chu Fengmian's character, Wu Dao's heart shuddered. Junior brother, if you kill this person, it will be troublesome. There are still many sect masters in the Sacred Academy sect. If you kill him, you will really fall out with the Sacred Academy sect. Qingming, who was standing at the side, saw Chu Fengmian's killing intent and reminded him. Compared to Chu Fengmian, Qingming knew more about the Holy Dragon's secret realm. The Holy Dragon's secret realm, or rather, the foundation of the four major forces in the Daluo star field, wasn't as simple as it seemed. There were many hidden old antiques that wouldn't appear on normal days, but they would still show themselves when something big happened. That's right, Chu Fengmian. If you kill me, you will all be finished and buried with me. Now, let me go and hand over the fortuitous encounter you obtained in the treasury as compensation. If you do, I won't fuss about today's matter with you, Wu Dao said to Chu Fengmian. Hearing Qingming's words, he seemed to have gained some confidence in his heart. Also, Luo Shi, obediently hand her over. Wu Dao's voice came to an abrupt stop as a sword light suddenly fell and pierced Wu Dao's blood essence. His blood essence was mercilessly crushed. Then, it was activated by the heaven-devouring secret technique. It was swallowed by the heaven-devouring secret technique and completely refined. The young sect master of the Sacred Academy sect, Wu Dao, was one of the most dazzling geniuses in the Holy Dragon's secret realm. Just like that, he was forced into the sky-devouring secret technique by Chu Fengmian. His blood essence was completely devoured and turned into Chu Fengmian's power. Wu Dao's personality was boundlessly arrogant and vicious. Even if Chu Fengmian let him go today, Wu Dao wouldn't be able to escape. Even if Chu Fengmian let Wu Dao go, he would still tell the higher-ups of the Sacred Academy sect to besiege Chu Fengmian. Since that was the case, Chu Fengmian might as well kill Wu Dao to avoid trouble in the future. Moreover, Chu Fengmian had never been threatened by others. Those who dared to threaten Chu Fengmian would only have a dead end. Seeing Chu Fengmian kill Wu Dao with lightning speed, Qingming could only sigh. Chapter 1691. Junior brother, you have to be careful. Among the past sect masters of the Saint Academy sect, I know that there are 5 who are still alive. 2 of them are half-step celestial realm expert. Qingming glanced at Chu Fengmian and reminded him. Don't worry, half-step celestial realm expert. As long as they are in my realm, I will kill as many as they dare to come. Chu Fengmian's eyes revealed a hint of ferocity. Chu Fengmian was no longer afraid of anything. After devouring Wu Dao's essence and blood, Chu Fengmian felt that the spiritual power in his body had reached the peak. As long as he found a safe place, he could step into the realm of 9 tribulations. Emperor Gu. I have established a force in the 9 regions called the Sword Dao sect. Let's go back first. Chu Fengmian looked at Emperor Yan and Qingming and said. He was now somewhat impatient to break through and step into the realm of 9 tribulations. Emperor Gu. The Sword Dao sect had been set up by Chu Fengmian before. It was definitely the safest place for Chu Fengmian in the 9 regions. Junior brother, you are actually from the 9 regions, right? Hearing Chu Fengmian's words, Qingming glanced at Chu Fengmian and suddenly spoke. Chu Fengmian glanced at Qingming with a somewhat strange look in his eyes. He did not expect Qingming to know his origin. However, the fact that Chu Fengmian came from the 9 regions should not be hidden for long. Chu Fengmian was once a famous genius in the 9 regions. He had once defeated the Demon Emperor in the 9 regions genius battle, which had already established Chu Fengmian's reputation as a genius. Later, because of the drastic changes in the 9 regions, countless geniuses were born in the 9 regions, and Chu Fengmian's name gradually faded away. If someone was willing to investigate carefully, it would not be difficult to find out that Chu Fengmian was from the 9 regions. Since Qingming knew, Chu Fengmian did not intend to hide it anymore. Chu Fengmian trusted Qingming very much. In the extremely dangerous moment just now, Qing Meng had used the sound transmission jade talisman to warn Chu Fengmian to be careful. How did you know? Chu Fengmian didn't refute. Instead, he asked curiously. Following the upheaval of the 9 regions, the current Daluo star domain was no longer ignorant of the 9 regions, which used to be saint domains. However, the fewer people who knew that Chu Fengmian was from the 9 regions, the better. The more people knew, the more troublesome it would be. Looks like the rumors weren't wrong. You're that Chu Fengmian from the 9 domains. When Qing Meng heard Chu Fengmian admit it, she couldn't help but frown slightly. If that's the case, things will be a little troublesome. What trouble? Chu Fengmian asked doubtfully. After learning that Chu Fengmian was from the 9 realms, Qing Meng actually became worried. Actually, as far as I know, the people from the Sacred Institute sect have been in contact with the people from the 7 great sects of the 9 zones. It's said that they want to deal with you, junior brother. The 7 great sects. Chu Fengmian's eyes turned cold. During the 9 zones genius battle, the secret that Chu Fengmian was from the Sword Dao sect had been exposed. Among the 7 great sects, 6 of them were the culprits who had once besieged and killed the Sword Dao master. Now that Chu Fengmian was a remnant of the Sword Dao sect, they naturally wanted to kill him. Now, the leader of the 6 Paths Demon sect, the Demon Emperor, hated Chu Fengmian to the core. Chu Fengmian had almost destroyed all of his clones, which was a great loss to him. The 7 great sects could be considered Chu Fengmian's enemies. If Chu Fengmian hadn't rushed into the 6 Paths Demon sect and fought with the Heavenly Demon's supremacy, he would have crossed the galaxy and gone to the ancient monster continent. He was afraid that there would be endless amounts of trouble coming to find his way. He didn't expect that the people from the 7 great sects would be ready to deal with Chu Fengmian as soon as he returned to the 9 zone. Moreover, they had joined forces with the people from the Sacred Institute sect. It seems that I have to step into the 9 tribulations, Emperor Gu first. Chu Fengmian's eyes turned cold. Now that his identity had been exposed, it would be more important for him to step into the 9 tribulations, Emperor Gu. Once he stepped into the 9 tribulations, Emperor Gu, Chu Fengmian's strength would soar several times. Only then would he have the strength to protect himself and deal with the crisis. Let's go. Let's leave this place first. Although this place contained countless treasures, most of the treasures had been collected. Chu Fengmian didn't care about the remaining treasures. Chu Fengmian's figure flashed and turned into a ray of light, flying out of the place. Along the way, Chu Fengmian quickly returned to the Crimson Continent. Without any hesitation, Chu Fengmian flew out of the returning ruins. But just as Chu Fengmian left the Crimson Continent and stepped into a star field in the returning ruins, Chu Fengmian's ray of light suddenly stopped in the sky. Brother Chu, what happened? Emperor Yen couldn't help but ask when he saw Chu Fengmian's figure stop. It seems that I left a little too late. Chu Fengmian replied softly, his eyes sweeping across the surroundings. No need to hide. Come out. Chu Fengmian stepped into the starry sky. Looking around, there was nothing. But as Chu Fengmian's voice rang out, waves of spiritual energy suddenly appeared. The starry sky was torn apart, and within the tear, one could see the figures of many powerful warriors. Chu Fengmian, it seems that you have a good understanding of my Imperial Pivot Hall. You can even see the flaw in this starry sky maze formation? It seems that you are indeed related to the former Sword Principal sect. Tell me, which surviving member of the Sword Principal sect are you? An old man suddenly appeared from the torn hole. This old man's body contained an incomparably strong power. 9 tribulations, Emperor Gu. The old man in front of him was actually a 9 tribulations, Emperor Gu. The decline of the 9 regions began with the destruction of the Sword Principal sect 10,000 years ago. It was because of the battle to kill the Sword Principal Master. A large number of powerhouses in the 9 regions were killed, and countless geniuses were affected. Many sects were destroyed, and their cultivation techniques were lost. That was why the 9 regions had declined to such a state. The 9 regions 10,000 years ago could be said to be much more prosperous than it was now. It wasn't that there weren't any Emperor Realm Masters. At least, Chu Fengmian had always believed that there were Emperor Realm Masters in the 7 great sects. Now that he saw the old man appear, Chu Fengmian wasn't surprised at all. There was even a hint of mockery in Chu Fengmian's eyes. Xingbaili, I didn't expect that a piece of trash like you would only be at this level now. It seems that you old fogies have all wasted your time. Chu Fengmian looked at the old man and said mockingly. Chapter 1692. Xingbaili. Who's that? Could that be Elder Bailey's real name? Hearing Chu Fengmian's words, the group of disciples behind the old man began to discuss. The expression of the old man called Xingbaili abruptly changed. He stared intently at Chu Fengmian and spoke with incomparable shock. Kid, who are you? It was no wonder that he was shocked. Xingbaili was someone who had lived for more than 10,000 years. He had existed during the era when the Sword Dao sect existed. He had been cultivating in the Sky Pivot Hall for more than 10,000 years. He was definitely an antique among antiques. Forget about outsiders, even within the Sky Pivot Hall, there were only a few people who knew his real name. Everyone knew that he was Elder Bailey of the Sword Dao sect, but the name Xingbaili hadn't been mentioned for thousands of years. How could he not be shocked when Chu Fengmian called out his name with just a glance? The rest of you, stop hiding. Do you want me to invite you out one by one? Chu Fengmian didn't answer Xingbaili's question. Instead, he looked to the side, where there was still a starry sky. At a glance, there wasn't a single trace of spiritual energy fluctuation. As Chu Fengmian spoke, there was still no change in the starry sky. It seems like the people of the desolate ancient sect are still hiding their heads and tails. Get out here. Chu Fengmian's 5 fingers suddenly made a grabbing motion towards the starry sky. The starry sky started to distort under Chu Fengmian's 5 fingers. The distorted starry sky gradually turned into an ancient golden path. This ancient golden path seemed to be connected to the desolate ancient era. Although this ancient golden path was located in the starry sky, it seemed to lead to another era at the end of this ancient golden path. It was a long river that ran through the era. This is the secret technique of the 9 domains? It's simply impossible to break through the era. Qing Meng couldn't help but jump in fright when she saw the ancient golden path. The profoundness of this move surpassed the countless secret techniques that she knew of in the Daluo star field. The ancient Baron sect had been passed down for tens of thousands of years. Even though the 9 regions had declined, the ancient Baron sect had left behind countless secret skills that had been passed down. The Yen Emperor was equally shocked. From their point of view, the 9 zones had already declined. But even if it had declined, the 9 domains were still the sacred domains of the past. A starving camel was still bigger than a horse. Many ancient secret techniques could be considered tyrannical in the Daluo star field. Kid, it seems like you are indeed from the Sword Dao sect. Other than the people from the Sword Dao sect, not many people in this world know the secret of the ancient Baron sect. An ancient voice slowly echoed in the ancient golden galaxy. You coward, come out and talk. Chu Fengmian snorted coldly when he heard the aged voice. He clenched his fist and his 5 fingers suddenly shot out streaks of sword qi towards the ancient golden river. The ancient golden river was suddenly cut open by the sword qi. Everyone could feel it. This ancient golden river had already been cut off from the ancient Baron era. Chu Fengmian's palm suddenly slammed down. The ancient golden river was smashed into pieces before Chu Fengmian's eyes. At the same time, figures were sent flying out from the ancient golden river. These figures were all wearing the same clothes. On their chests there was a large Baron word that represented their identity. Disciples of the ancient Baron sect. These disciples of the ancient Baron sect had been forced out of the ancient golden river by Chu Fengmian's palm. Many of them were injured and looked at Chu Fengmian angrily. The leader of the group, an old man, looked at Chu Fengmian in disbelief and said in shock, Who are you? How did you break through the ancient barren path? The astonished old man was the one who had spoken on the ancient golden path. The ancient barren path was the most powerful secret technique in the ancient barren sect. It connected to the ancient barren era and allowed one to enter deep into the ancient barren era. All the energy that came crashing in would be pushed into the ancient desolation, allowing the people inside to remain unharmed. If one hadn't fought against it before and was able to detect the flaws in it, this move could be said to be invincible. But now Chu Fengmian had easily found the flaws in the ancient barren path and destroyed it with just a few streaks of sword chi. This was something that could only be done by someone who had a deep understanding of the ancient barren sect. Right now, this old man's astonishment was not the slightest bit inferior to Xing Beilei's. Yet another familiar face. Chu Fengmian looked at the old man with a playful smile and sneered. Donggong Ju? Looks like you're as useless as Xing Beilei. You've lived for thousands of years in vain. Now you're just a 9 tribulations Emperor Gu. You're a disgrace to the Eastern Palace family. The Eastern Palace family was the biggest family in the ancient barren sect. Countless generations of sect masters came from the Eastern Palace family. Donggong Ju was once a disciple of the Eastern Palace family. Thousands of years ago, he had stepped into the quasi-emperor realm and was considered a genius at that time. But now, after thousands of years, Donggong Ju was just a 9 tribulations Emperor Gu. In Chu Fengmian's opinion, Donggong Ju was still a long way from reaching the half-step celestial realm. This kind of breakthrough speed was considered normal among martial artists. But in front of Chu Fengmian, he was no different from a piece of trash. Chu Fengmian had only been reborn for a few years and he already had such strength. Chu Fengmian's words were incomparably convincing. Junior brother, you admit defeat to these two? Qingmeng looked at the two old men in shock when she heard Chu Fengmian's words. Of course, she could tell that Xing Beilei and Donggong Ju's age were probably above 10,000 years. But from Chu Fengmian's tone, it seemed like he was very familiar with the two old men. This scene was very strange. Not only Qingmeng, but the group of ancient barren sect disciples also looked at Chu Fengmian in disbelief. Many of them had heard of Chu Fengmian's name. They knew that Chu Fengmian was a new genius disciple of the Beimang Academy in the 9 domains. But they did not expect Chu Fengmian to be acquainted with an elder like their old ancestor. Brat, who are you? Donggong Ju shouted angrily when he heard Chu Fengmian say his name. Chapter 1693. Other than Alpha Hall and Ancient Barren Sect, where are the other 5 sects? Why aren't they here? Chu Fengmian ignored Dong Gongjue's angry roar. He looked around and asked casually. Among the 7 sects, only Alpha Hall and Ancient Barren Sect were here. Chu Fengmian was surprised that the other 5 sects were not here. The 7 great sects had dominated the 9 regions. Although they were often talked about, they didn't really agree with each other. However, the 7 great sects would definitely want to take Chu Fengmian's life if they wanted to deal with him this time. Back then, the 7 sects had helped to kill the master of Sword Dao. If Chu Fengmian was allowed to grow, none of them would have a good ending. What? Do you think I can't deal with a little guy like you? Dong Gongjue looked at Chu Fengmian and snorted. Kid, speak clearly. Who are you? Tell me now and you will suffer less. Otherwise, I will let you have a taste of having your soul extracted and refined. Save the taste of having your soul extracted and refined for yourself. Dong Gongjue, when we attacked the heaven-ceasing peak, you also took action. Today, I will kill you first and avenge everyone in the Sword Dao sect. Chu Fengmian looked at Dong Gongjue with killing intent. Dong Gongjue was one of the martial artists who attacked the heaven-ceasing peak. Although he was a small fry, Chu Fengmian remembered his face clearly. Chu Fengmian would not let any of the martial artists who attacked the heaven-ceasing peak go. Presumptuous! You are just a remnant of the Sword Dao sect. Even the master of Sword Dao was killed by our ancient Baron sect. How dare you speak so arrogantly? A middle-aged man walked out from the group of ancient Baron sect disciples and looked at Dong Gongjue. Elder Dong Gongjue, please calm down. Let me capture this kid and bring him to you to apologize. All right, Hong Xian, I will let you do it. Capture this kid and bring him here. Remember, don't kill him. Dong Gongjue looked at the middle-aged man and snorted. Hong Xian's strength had already reached the level of the Nine Tribulations Emperor Gu. Although he had just entered the Nine Tribulations Emperor Gu, his strength was already extremely powerful. The cultivation techniques of the Nine Regions sects were even more mysterious than the cultivation techniques in the Sacred Dragon Mystery Domain. Even though Hong Xian had just entered the Nine Tribulations Emperor Gu, his strength was already considered average among the Nine Tribulations Emperor Gu. Hong Xian looked at Chu Fengmian with disdain when he saw Chu Fengmian's cultivation level. Naturally, he could see that Chu Fengmian was in the realm of 8 Tribulations Emperor Gu. Chu Fengmian's realm was one level lower than his own. Naturally, it was a piece of cake for him to deal with Chu Fengmian. With Hong Xian making a move, capturing this kid will be a piece of cake. Not necessarily. After all, this kid is from the Sword Dao sect. He might have a secret technique from the Sword Dao sect. Sword Dao sect? So what? Didn't we destroy them all the same? It's too flattering for so many of us to deal with a mere Sword Dao sect remnant. The disciples of the Desolate Ancient sect looked at Chu Fengmian and sneered. These disciples of the Desolate Ancient sect were the geniuses that had been nurtured by the Desolate Ancient sect for the past 10,000 years. Although they had heard of Chu Fengmian's name, they didn't care about his story. In their opinion, they didn't need to care about a junior like him. They looked at Chu Fengmian as if they were watching a good show. They were waiting for Hong Xian to capture Chu Fengmian. I heard that you ranked first in the Nine Regions Genius Battle? It's a pity that the Nine Regions Genius Battle is nothing. Your so-called strength is nothing in front of the Desolate Ancient sect. Hong Xian flew out and stood in front of Chu Fengmian. He sized Chu Fengmian up and said arrogantly, "Kid, are you going to surrender now or wait for me to beat you to the ground? If you surrender obediently, you'll be spared some physical pain. Brother Chu, I'll kill him." The Yen Emperor couldn't hold himself back after hearing Hong Xian's arrogant words. He took a step forward and planned to kill Hong Xian. The Yen Emperor saw how Chu Fengmian killed Wu Dao with his own eyes. Even Wu Dao, who was considered invincible among the Nine Tribulations Emperor Gu, was killed by Chu Fengmian. Hong Xian was like an ant. How dare he provoke Chu Fengmian? He was courting death. What? Are you going to fight me? Although your cultivation level is higher than mine, it's still not a problem for me to kill you. Hearing the Yen Emperor's words, Hong Xian glanced at the Yen Emperor and said arrogantly, "The Nine Regions used to be part of the Sacred Regions. The legacy of the Desolate Ancient sect represented the legacy of the Nine Regions." Hong Xian didn't take the Yen Emperor seriously. However, he still looked at Chu Fengmian. "Kid, are you going to hide behind others forever? The people of the Sword Dao sect are just SOSO. I heard that you plan to rebuild the Sword Dao sect? With your puny strength, I can destroy the Sword Dao sect alone." Chu Fengmian's eyes changed when he heard the words, "Destroy the Sword Dao sect." Boundless anger burned in his eyes. The Sword Dao sect had been destroyed before. Almost all of Chu Fengmian's senior brothers and sisters died in front of him. How dare Hong Xian mention the word destroy? Yen Emperor, you don't have to do anything. Since an ant wants to die, I'll fulfill his wish. Chu Fengmian took a step forward and looked at Hong Xian. The corner of his mouth twitched and he said coldly. The coldness in his words made people feel as if they were in an ice cellar. "Tell me, how do you want to die? How do you want to die?" The moment these words were spoken, the expressions of everyone present changed. Qing Meng and the Yen Emperor looked very serious. They had been by Chu Fengmian's side for a long time, but this was the first time they had heard such shocking killing intent. Even when Luo Kong was injured by Aomo, Chu Fengmian wasn't this angry. A dragon had a reverse scale. The Sword Dao sect was Chu Fengmian's reverse scale. Whoever dared to mention it had to die. On the other side, the disciples of the desolate ancient sect and Dubhe Hall burst into laughter when they heard Chu Fengmian's words. They were laughing at Chu Fengmian for overestimating himself. The gap between the 8 Tribulation Emperor Gu and the 9 Tribulation Emperor Gu was huge. Moreover, Chu Fengmian was facing Hong Xian. "Brat, it seems like you don't know what's good for you. Very well, I'll cripple your cultivation and bring you back to apologize." Hong Xian shouted coldly and suddenly attacked. The great way of the ancients burst out behind him. The aura on his body was like that of an ancient war god. Ancient power condensed on his fist. Boom, 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 boom. As he punched towards Chu Fengmian, the ancient power immediately descended and shrouded Chu Fengmian's body, wanting to crush him into pieces. Chapter 1694. Ancient Divine Fist. This was one of the most powerful martial techniques in the ancient Baron sect. Although many disciples of the ancient Baron sect knew this move, they knew that it was their most powerful martial technique. However, the deeper one's understanding of the way of the ancients, the more powerful the ancient divine fist would be. Hong Xian's comprehension of the way of the ancient desolates had reached a very profound level. He threw out a punch, causing the ancient desolate's power to descend and attack Chu Fengmian. This punch is so powerful. Is this the 9 domains martial technique? When Qing Meng and the Yen Emperor saw this fist coming, their faces turned grim. Especially the Yen Emperor, whose cultivation level was actually higher than Hong Xian's. But the moment he saw the fist coming down, the Yen Emperor felt a sense of danger. Even if he wanted to block this punch, it would be very difficult. Although the 9 regions had declined, the martial skills within them were still superior to those of countless star regions. You don't even have the ancient divine light. How dare you act so presumptuously in front of me? Chu Fengmian didn't even lift his eyelids when he saw the ancient divine fist coming down on him. Suddenly, a sword flashed out. Rip! The sword was so fast that no one could see it clearly. Everyone only felt the sword flashing by. When they looked over, the ancient divine fist had been destroyed mercilessly. Hong Xian's ancient divine fist was destroyed just like that. Many disciples of the ancient Baron sect were still in shock when someone suddenly shouted. Following the shout, many people looked in the direction of Hong Xian and were stunned. A sword mark could be clearly seen on Hong Xian's chest. Following the sword mark, Hong Xian's body suddenly split open and exploded. Hong Xian's body was completely destroyed by Chu Fengmian's sword. My body! How dare you destroy my body? A ball of blood essence flew out from Hong Xian's body. Seeing the destroyed body, Hong Xian roared crazily. He had just entered the 9 Tribulations Emperor Gu's cultivation level. Once his body was destroyed, there was a possibility that his cultivation level would drop. With one sword, Hong Xian's body was destroyed. All of a sudden, the disciples of the Baron Ancient sect, who were waiting to watch a good show, were stunned. It took a long time for them to regain their senses. Hong Xian was an Emperor Gu of the 9 Tribulations. Even if Hong Xian had just broken through, he was still a true Emperor Gu of the 9 Tribulations. Against other 9 Tribulations Emperor Gu, perhaps Hong Xian would be at a disadvantage. Chu Fengmian was only at the level of 8 Tribulations Emperor Gu. In terms of cultivation level, Hong Xian was even stronger than Chu Fengmian. But now Hong Xian had been killed just like that? Chu Fengmian destroyed his physical body with a casual swing of his sword. In particular, Chu Fengmian's slash was unbelievably fast. Even many of the experts among them couldn't see Chu Fengmian's sword light clearly. On the other side, Dong Gongjue and Xing Beili were equally shocked. However, their gazes were fixed on the giant sword dripping with blood in Chu Fengmian's hand. This giant sword was the Titanic Divine Sword. Its blade was stained with Hong Xian's blood. The Titanic Divine Sword. It really is the Titanic Divine Sword. The Titanic Divine Sword was once the master of Sword Dao's sword. If this man can use it, he must be closely related to the master of Sword Dao. I'm afraid he's one of the master of Sword Dao's disciples. Could it be that the master of Sword Dao left his legacy and this man has obtained it? Dong Gongjue's eyes were burning with passion. The 7 sects wanted to kill the master of Sword Dao for 2 reasons. First, they wanted to destroy the Sword Dao sect and dominate the 9 regions. Second, they wanted to obtain the master of Sword Dao's invincible sword technique. However, when the 7 sects attacked the heaven-ceasing peak, none of the master of Sword Dao's disciples surrendered. Even the weak Chu Fengmian chose to jump off the heaven-ceasing peak. His corpse was nowhere to be found. The master of Sword Dao's invincible sword technique was lost. Now that Chu Fengmian had such an amazing sword technique, they must obtain it. I will use this sword to slaughter the 7 sections. Chu Fengmian waved his sword slightly and the blood on the Titanic Divine Sword was shaken off. The Titanic Divine Sword was once the master of Sword Dao's sword. Chu Fengmian must sacrifice the blood of the 7 sects to the Titanic Divine Sword. Today Hong Xian would be the first. However, Chu Fengmian did not plan to kill Hong Xian with a single strike. Hong Xian had offended Chu Fengmian's reverse scale. It would be too easy for Hong Xian to kill him with a single strike. Come here. The Titanic Divine Sword disappeared from Chu Fengmian's palm and flew back into the World's Edge sword case. Chu Fengmian moved his right hand and grabbed at Hong Xian's body, which was once again condensing in the air. At the same time, a ball of white flame appeared on Chu Fengmian's left hand. The white flame was not the search flame, but the real demonic flame, which could burn the soul. Demonic flame? The moment they saw the white flame that appeared in Chu Fengmian's palm, everyone present felt a chill in their hearts. The appearance of the demonic flame reminded them of an ancient punishment, which was to extract the soul and refine it. In the 9 regions, the cruelest and most powerful punishment was to extract the soul and refine it. The demonic flame would burn the soul and refine it into a weapon. Once a person was refined into a weapon, his soul would be burned by the demonic flame forever. It was the most vicious method in the world. Being burned by the demonic flame was an unbearable pain that came from the soul. Even if it was just for a moment, it would be more painful than dying 1,000,000 times over. Moreover, being burned by the demonic flame for a long time meant that once the soul was extracted and refined, it would be a fate worse than death. No! Hong Xian saw Chu Fengmian's action and his eyes were filled with fear. He had never been burned by the demonic flame before, but he had used the same method against others. The miserable screams of those people were still vivid in his mind. He did not want his soul to be extracted and refined. The moment Chu Fengmian's right hand reached out, Hong Xian's regenerated body retreated in an attempt to escape. However, Hong Xian's body could not escape from Chu Fengmian's palm, no matter how hard he tried. With a surge of spiritual energy, Hong Xian's body flew towards Chu Fengmian's palm. "Don't you dare!" A figure flew out from the crowd. It was another one of the 9 tribulations, Emperor Gu of the desolate ancient sect. He suddenly threw a punch at Chu Fengmian. There were also people in the desolate ancient sect who were on good terms with Hong Xian. When they saw that Chu Fengmian was about to extract Hong Xian's soul and refine it, they stepped forward to stop Chu Fengmian. Chapter 1695. This punch was extremely powerful and it landed on Chu Fengmian's head. It was a punch made of pure strength, and there was nothing fancy about it. However, it was such a sudden attack that was the most terrifying. It gave Chu Fengmian no time to think. It was no different from a sneak attack. However, before his punch could land, a battle dragon claw formed above Chu Fengmian's head and struck down mercilessly. The moment the battle dragon claw struck out, it swept through everything. The fist wind that was sneakily attacking Chu Fengmian was immediately shattered. How dare a piece of trash like you launch a sneak attack? Go to hell. Chu Fengmian's face was as cold as ice. Channeling spiritual energy, the battle dragon claw swept towards the ancient emperor of the desolate ancient sect. Seeing that his sneak attack had failed, the desolate ancient sect's ancient emperor's face changed drastically. He hurriedly retreated, and an ancient golden path appeared beneath his feet. He intended to hide within the desolate ancient Tao. However, the speed of Chu Fengmian's battle dragon claw was much faster than Emperor Gu's. Chu Fengmian's war dragon claw came crashing down mercilessly before he could even step into the primordial path. Ah! The ancient emperor of the desolate ancient sect shrieked in agony. His body exploded from the battle dragon's claw and his blood essence was devoured by the heaven-devouring secret technique. This, Jiang Rang died just like that? How is this possible? Jiang Rang is stronger than Hong Xian. How is this possible? Many disciples of the desolate ancient sect were in disbelief when they saw Jiang Rang exploding in the air. This scene was even more shocking than when Chu Fengmian defeated Hong Xian with a single move. Chu Fengmian had inherited the Sword Tao School. Swordsmanship was his most powerful skill. Chu Fengmian had used his swordsmanship to defeat Hong Xian. It could be said that Chu Fengmian had used his full strength. However, Chu Fengmian didn't even draw his sword to deal with Jiang Rang's sneak attack. He even used his demonization to burn Hong Xian's soul. Jiang Rang was mercilessly killed by the battle dragon claw that he had casually condensed. A casual strike was enough to slap Emperor Gu of the Nine Tribulations to death. What kind of strength was this? Many of the disciples of the sect of the Barren Ancient Sect, who had been clamoring and thinking that Hong Xian could easily defeat Chu Fengmian, were now silent. They looked at Chu Fengmian with fear in their eyes. Brat, how dare you kill a disciple of the desolate ancient sect? Dong Gongjue glared at Chu Fengmian furiously. Both Hong Xian and Jiang Rang were disciples that the desolate ancient sect had spent a huge amount of resources to nurture. The two of them were the future pillars of the desolate ancient sect. But now they were destroyed by Chu Fengmian so easily. Hong Xian was still fine. Only his physical body had been broken. However, Jiang Rang was as dead as a doornail. There was no longer any trace of Jiang Rang's aura in the world. It could be said that not even a celestial being could save him. Why wouldn't I dare? You people from the desolate ancient sect dare to surround and kill me today? Do you think that none of you will be able to leave here alive today? Chu Fengmian sneered when he heard Dong Gongjue's words. Dong Gongjue, it seems like you're still trash. If it weren't for the Dong Gongjue family, you would have been expelled from the desolate ancient sect. But now you're doing well. It's a pity that ninth senior brother didn't kill you 10,000 years ago. Today I'll do it. Dong Gongjue once had a grudge with Chu Fengmian's ninth senior brother. In the end, Chu Fengmian's ninth senior brother spared his life. In the end, when the seven major sects besieged the heaven-ceasing peak, Dong Gongjue showed no mercy when he massacred the disciples of the Sword Tao sect. He even killed many of ninth senior brother's servants. Compared to Xing Bailey, Chu Fengmian wanted to kill Dong Gongjue more. Hearing the words ninth senior brother, Dong Gongjue's body trembled. Dong Gongjue's body couldn't help but tremble as he stared at Chu Fengmian in disbelief. He had once lost to ninth senior brother 10,000 years ago. During that era, not many people knew about it. 10,000 years later, no one knew that he had lost to ninth senior brother and begged for mercy. Now, Chu Fengmian was the one who said it. That was the greatest humiliation in Dong Gongjue's life. Kid, it seems like you know a lot. That's great. I'll capture you and interrogate you. Dong Gongjue shouted coldly. He couldn't help but attack. He didn't know how many of his secrets Chu Fengmian knew. If Chu Fengmian revealed all of them, he wouldn't be able to establish himself in the 9 regions. Before Chu Fengmian revealed all of his secrets, he had to capture Chu Fengmian first. Dong Gongjue's power was completely different from that of the ordinary 9 tribulations Emperor Gu. 10,000 years of accumulation had made Dong Gongjue's strength reach an unbelievable level. Due to his limited aptitude, Dong Gongjue would never be able to step into the half-step celestial realm. However, his accumulation made him invincible among the 9 tribulations Emperor Gu. With one move, a strong spiritual energy shrouded Dong Gongjue's back and turned into an ancient god of war. One could clearly feel the terrifying power contained in the ancient god of war. Donggong Zhanquang. Chu Fengmian muttered the name when he saw the ancient god of war. That was the name of the ancient god of war. Donggong Zhanquang was the ancestor of the Donggong family and one of the founding ancestors of the ancient Baron sect. His martial arts were passed down from generation to generation, which was what made the Donggong family what it was today. Dong Gongjue attacked Chu Fengmian at almost the same time as the ancient god of war. Elder Dong Gongjue, save me! Hong Xian, who was constantly being burned by Chu Fengmian's demonic fire, shouted loudly when he saw Dong Gongjue make a move as though he had seen a life-saving straw. Even Dong Gongmi won't be able to save you today, let alone Dong Gongjue. Chu Fengmian sneered when he heard Hong Xian's words and glanced at Dong Gongjue. Senior Sister Qingming, Emperor Yen, stop him. Whoosh. Behind Chu Fengmian, Qingming and Emperor Yen attacked Dong Gongjue at the same time, blocking Dong Gongjue in front of Chu Fengmian. On the other side, Chu Fengmian's gaze fell on Hong Xian. His face was ferocious as he smiled viciously. Chapter 1696. Chu Fengmian couldn't care less about Jiang Rang's death. However, Hong Xian had touched Chu Fengmian's reverse scale. Chu Fengmian wanted Hong Xian to know that death was a luxury to him. Condense. Rumble. The ball of demonic fire in Chu Fengmian's palm burned even more fiercely. The pain Hong Xian felt in the demonic fire was thousands of times more intense. If he still had his physical body, he would have died 1,000 times over. However, Hong Xian was only left with his soul. Not only would he not faint in the demonic fire, he could feel the pain clearly. This was the power of the demonic fire. It wouldn't kill Hong Xian, but it would make him feel endless pain. Everyone present could hear Hong Xian's screams clearly. Their faces turned cold as they stepped back. They looked at Chu Fengmian like a demon. Many of them had tried to extract and refine one's soul before. However, to extract and refine Hong Xian's soul in front of so many experts of the desolate ancient sect was a madman's action. Brat, you've gone too far. Killing people is just a matter of nodding your head to the ground. What you are doing is no different from a demon. A Sky Pivot Hall disciple suddenly walked out and said coldly to Chu Fengmian, "Get lost." Chu Fengmian didn't bother to talk nonsense with the disciple. He shouted angrily and the battle dragon claw appeared above his head once again. It attacked the Sky Pivot Hall disciple. Chu Fengmian would never waste his breath on the disciples of the 7 major sections. The expression of the Sky Pivot Hall disciple who had spoken earlier changed drastically when he saw the battle dragon's claw. He did not expect that Chu Fengmian would directly attack at this moment. He had witnessed the power of the battle dragon claw with his own eyes. Jiang Rang was killed in a single move. His strength wasn't much stronger than Jiang Rang's. Elder Bailey, the Heavenly Pivot Hall disciple, had no choice but to look at Xing Bailey beside him. When he saw the battle dragon claw descending upon him, he waved his sleeves, causing a surge of star energy to erupt from his body, colliding with the battle dragon claw in midair. No matter what, it was impossible for him to sit by and watch as a disciple of the heavenly pivot hall was killed by Chu Fengmian. Brat, you've gone too far. Don't tell me that you really intend to make an enemy out of the 7 great sects by yourself? Xing Beili took a step forward, looked at Chu Fengmian and said coldly. Originally, as long as you tell us where you got the inheritance of the Sword Dao sect and join one of the 7 major sects, we can spare your life. However, what you did today is pushing you straight into the fire pit. You won't kill me? When did the people of the 7 great sects become so benevolent? Hearing Xing Beili's words, the corner of Chu Fengmian's mouth revealed a somewhat mocking smile as he spoke word by word. 10,000 years ago, when they besieged the heaven-ceasing peak, all the disciples of the Sword Dao school on the heaven-ceasing peak, all the servants, and even all the living creatures within 100 miles were all killed. You guys just want the sword arts of the Sword Dao sect. Why are you making it sound so dignified? Chu Fengmian looked at Xing Beili with a somewhat complicated look in his eyes. Even if the 7 great sects don't kill me, I'll still destroy the 7 great sections. Xing Beili, I don't want to kill your Xing family people. Get lost. Chu Fengmian almost roared out the last 3 words in his word. Thinking about what happened 10,000 years ago, Chu Fengmian could no longer hold back the killing intent in his heart. How can you remember what happened 10,000 years ago so clearly? Who exactly are you? Xing Beili heard Chu Fengmian's words and became more and more surprised. Back then, in order to destroy the Sword Dao sect and not leave any survivors, the 7 great sects not only killed the countless disciples and servants of the Sword Dao sect. Even the living creatures and countless martial artists within 100 miles around the heaven-ceasing peak were all killed by the 7 great sections. Until now, the area around the heaven-ceasing peak was still filled with a thick smell of blood. Even 10,000 years ago, it still did not dissipate. There were countless vengeful spirits in it, and it almost became a place of death. Some of the old men in the 7 great sects knew about this matter. But now, Chu Fengmian actually knew about it. Even if Chu Fengmian had obtained the inheritance of the Sword Dao sect, it was impossible for him to know such a secret. Unless someone had escaped from the Sword Dao sect, it was only possible. It was passed down by word of mouth. How could it be as clear as Chu Fengmian's knowledge? Just as Xing Beili was thinking about it, Dong Gongjue was already going crazy. He was now entangled by Emperor Yan and Qing Meng and could not save Hong Xian. He could only watch as Hong Xian's soul was extracted and refined by Chu Fengmian. Dong Gongjue couldn't hold it in any longer and roared at Xing Beili when he saw Hong Xian's screams. Xing Beili, there's no need to waste your breath on this brat. Capture him and refine his soul. He'll spill out all his secrets. Don't forget the agreement between the 7 great sects. Seeing that Xing Beili was still hesitating, Dong Gongjue shouted again. The agreement between the 7 great sections. After hearing those words, the hesitation in Xing Beili's eyes was completely swept away. He abruptly made his move. With a wave of his sleeve, the power of the stars condensed in his palm. The power of the stars in Xing Beili's palm turned into a river of stars. It contained a terrifying power of the stars and fell towards Chu Fengmian. In an instant, Chu Fengmian's body sank into the river of stars. The power of the stars suppressed Chu Fengmian's body and suppressed him. Don't blame me if you don't get lost. Chu Fengmian sighed as he watched Xing Beili take action. Amongst the 7 great sects, the only one that Chu Fengmian was slightly wary of and unwilling to take action was the Alpha Hall. But now that Xing Beili had made his move, Chu Fengmian would not hesitate. Even if they were once friends, Alpha Hall was now Chu Fengmian's mortal enemy. Condense. Chu Fengmian's large hand suddenly squeezed as he looked at Hong Xian, who was still being burned by the demonic flame. Hong Xian's soul was eternally fused with the demonic flame and turned into a black pearl. Chu Fengmian tossed it onto the ground like a piece of trash. In the pearl, Hong Xian's soul was being burned by the demonic fire forever. No one could save him. At the same time, two spiritual swords were unsheathed from the world's edge sword box on Chu Fengmian's back. The ancestral dragon supreme sword and the titanic divine sword were both in Chu Fengmian's hands. A shocking sword intent burst out from Chu Fengmian's back. Chapter 1697. At the same time, the power of the stars had already pressed down on Chu Fengmian. Dubhe Hall was the sect that had the deepest understanding of the Tao of Stars among the 9 regions. The Tao of Stars was extremely strange and contained incredible power. The 9 mystic celestial venerable had once created the legendary 9 mystic immortal technique by observing the stars. The true founder of Dubhe Hall was even more powerful than the 9 mystic celestial venerable. Chu Fengmian was deep in the stars, and the overwhelming pressure shrouded Chu Fengmian. If it was an ordinary 9 tribulations Emperor Gu, he would have been instantly suppressed by this terrifying pressure. However, Chu Fengmian's face was extremely calm as he glanced at the star power that was pressing down on him. He sneered and struck out with both swords. "Break for me!" Swoosh! 2 sharp sword rays burst out at the same time, and the dazzling sword rays slashed on the stars that shrouded Chu Fengmian. As Chu Fengmian's sword rays slashed across, the stars around Chu Fengmian were forcefully torn apart. Then, Chu Fengmian flicked his sword. The starry river was immediately torn apart by Chu Fengmian's sword. "It's broken! I wonder how many famous 9 tribulations Emperor Gu have been suppressed by Elder Bailey's endless stars. Now it's broken just like that?" Many disciples of Dubhe Hall said in disbelief as they watched Chu Fengmian tear apart the stars around him. Even Xing Bailey's eyes were filled with shock, as if he had never thought that Chu Fengmian could break his suppression so easily. However, Xing Bailey was also a person who had experienced countless life and death battles. He was an old antique who had lived for more than 10,000 years. After testing Chu Fengmian's strength, Xing Bailey retreated and carefully sized up Chu Fengmian. He could not see through Chu Fengmian's origin. He had suppressed Chu Fengmian just now because he wanted to test Chu Fengmian's strength. If Chu Fengmian's strength was insufficient, Xing Bailey would have suppressed Chu Fengmian directly. But now it seemed that Chu Fengmian's strength was much stronger than he had imagined. Although that endless galaxy wasn't Xing Bailey's most powerful killing move, it was still a secret technique that he had unleashed with all his strength. Yet it had been easily torn apart by Chu Fengmian. Chu Fengmian was much more difficult to deal with than he had imagined. "Qing Meng, Yen Emperor, please stop." Chu Fengmian did not pay attention to Xing Bailey, who had retreated. Instead, he looked in the direction of Qing Meng and the Yen Emperor and said softly. Hearing Chu Fengmian's words, Qing Meng and the Yen Emperor used their spiritual energy to force Dong Gongju back and returned to Chu Fengmian's side. Although the two of them could not kill Dong Gongju, it would be easy for them to escape unscathed. "Xing Bailey, you can't even take down this person." Seeing Chu Fengmian standing there peacefully, Dong Gongju looked at Xing Bailey and frowned. "Could it be that this kid has some kind of relationship with your Dubhe Hall? Why are you protecting him?" "Protection?" Xing Bailey's expression also became a little gloomy when he heard these words. He had just attacked and probed Chu Fengmian's strength. He was already clearly aware that it was basically impossible for him to defeat Chu Fengmian alone. Now that he had retreated, he was also sizing up Chu Fengmian's strength and preparing a countermeasure. However, in Dong Gongju's eyes, he was actually protecting Chu Fengmian? "Ha ha, Dong Gongju, it seems that not only are you weak, your eyesight has not improved since 10,000 years ago." Chu Fengmian looked at Dong Gongju and said with a cold smile, "Trash of the Eastern Palace family. Kid, don't be so arrogant. You only have 2 Emperor Gu of the 9 tribulations behind you. In my eyes, you are just a trash who hides behind others." Dong Gongjue looked at Chu Fengmian, then sized up Qing Meng and the Yen Emperor and sneered. Two Emperor Gu of the 9 tribulations are not worth mentioning in the eyes of the desolate ancient sect. If the two of you insist on protecting this kid, then the 9 regions will be your hiding place. Is that so? Hiding behind others? Do you think that you can kill me alone? Chu Fengmian looked at Dong Gongjue with a mocking gaze. Yen Emperor, senior sister Qing Meng, don't make a move. After saying that, Chu Fengmian took a step forward and stood in the sky. He scanned the surroundings and said, "All of you, come at me together. Xing Bailey, you too. Come at me together." Chu Fengmian's words were spoken calmly, but everyone's heart was in turmoil the moment they heard it. Chu Fengmian wants to fight 2 people alone? Against Dong Gongjue and Xing Bailey? Dong Gongjue and Xing Bailey were figures from 10,000 years ago. They were like the ancestors of the 7 major sections. If it weren't for Chu Fengmian, he wouldn't have come out of seclusion. He was an invincible expert. Chu Fengmian wants to fight 2 people alone? I'm saying that all the disciples of Dubhe Hall and Desolate Ancient Sect should come at me together. I don't want to waste time killing you one by one. Hearing the discussions of the crowd, Chu Fengmian's lips twitched and he said another sentence. As soon as he said that, the disciples of Desolate Ancient Sect and Dubhe Hall, who were still discussing animatedly, stopped talking. Countless eyes looked at Chu Fengmian. The disciples of Dubhe Hall of the Desolate Ancient Sect were filled with boundless anger. They were filled with disdain. The moment Chu Fengmian's gaze swept across them, it was as if he was looking at ants. The disciples of Dubhe Hall of the Desolate Ancient Sect were at least as strong as Emperor Gu. They were experts who could dominate the 9 regions. When had they ever been looked down upon? Brat, do you think that you're already a heavenly man and an immortal? How dare you speak so arrogantly? Aren't you afraid of biting your tongue? A disciple of Dubhe Hall couldn't help but speak up when he heard Chu Fengmian's words. I'm not a heavenly man and I'm not an immortal. However, I'm more than capable of killing all of you. Let's see if you have the strength to back up your words. Chu Fengmian's eyes were cold as he looked at the disciple of Dubhe Hall who had just spoken. The titanic sword in his hand suddenly shot out a sword light. Without any hesitation, the dazzling sword light tore through space and slashed towards the disciple. Stars of the 4 divisions, Black Tortoise Star Robe. The disciple of Dubhe Hall who had just spoken had expected Chu Fengmian to attack. The moment Chu Fengmian attacked, the power of the stars on his body transformed into a robe and covered his body. Chapter 1698. The Black Tortoise was one of the innate divine beasts and the ancestor of the tortoise tribe. The most powerful aspect of the black tortoise was the turtle shell on its body, which could be said to be invincible. Many defensive secret techniques in the world had been created by some powerhouses who had comprehended the shell on the back of the black tortoise. The black tortoise image appeared on the Sky Pivot Hall disciple's starry robe and immediately turned into layers of defensive barriers that enveloped his body. Clearly, he was fully prepared for Chu Fengmian's attack and wanted to slap Chu Fengmian's face. Brat, aren't you arrogant beyond measure? Let me see how you'll break my black tortoise starry robe. The Sky Pivot Hall disciple looked at Chu Fengmian's incoming sword light with disdain after the black tortoise starry robe had condensed. The black tortoise starry robe is one of the most profound secret techniques of our Sky Pivot Hall. I didn't expect senior brother Huashe to have cultivated it to such a proficient level. The black tortoise starry robe can be said to be invincible. No one in the same realm has ever been able to break it. Let's see how this brat will suffer in a moment. The Sky Pivot Hall disciples sneered and looked at Chu Fengmian. Chu Fengmian's words were too arrogant. They also wanted to see Chu Fengmian's face being slapped. He had already spoken such arrogant words. If he couldn't even break through the defense of this Alpha Hall disciple, then Chu Fengmian wouldn't have any face left. The Black Tortoise Starry Robe? Invincible defense? What a joke. Even the Black Tortoise will die one day. What kind of invincible defense is that? Even if it is, it will still be broken in front of me. Chu Fengmian suddenly roared. Voracious wolf. Starry power suddenly emerged from Chu Fengmian's body and poured into the sword light. The power of the sword light suddenly increased countless times under the shroud of the starry power. This? Huoshi, who had just attacked, didn't even have time to react before he discovered that the power of the sword light had increased countless times. The Black Tortoise Starry Robe on his body showed signs of shattering as the sword light approached. Break for me! Chu Fengmian bellowed as a dazzling sword light cleaved at the Black Tortoise Star Robe. The numerous stars on the Black Tortoise Star Robe shattered the moment they came into contact with the sword light. Not good. Huoshi's expression changed drastically. Just as he was about to flee, Chu Fengmian's sword light easily tore apart the Black Tortoise Star Robe. Violent sword qi struck Huoshi's body and exploded within his body. Bang! Bang! Huoshi's body turned into a bloody mist in the air. Just like the Black Tortoise Star Robe he was wearing, it was mercilessly smashed into countless pieces. Chu Fengmian did not waste his spiritual power. He used the sky-devouring secret skill to devour all of it into his body. There was no pity in Chu Fengmian's eyes as he looked at the dead Huoshi. Since this person dared to make an enemy out of Chu Fengmian, this was his fate. Chu Fengmian never showed mercy to his enemies. Everything happened in the blink of an eye. Earlier, those Sky Pivot Hall disciples were watching all of this with an expression as if they were watching a good show. They wanted to see the scene of Chu Fengmian being ruthlessly slapped in the face. But now, Huoshi's corpse was nowhere to be found. Kill! We must kill him and avenge senior brother Huoshi. Kill! Let's attack together and kill him. He's alone. I don't believe that we can't kill him if we join hands. Countless Sky Pivot Hall disciples shouted angrily. You're too vicious when attacking at such a young age. Xing Bailey looked at Chu Fengmian with fury in his eyes. First, he was provoked. Now, Huoshi was killed by Chu Fengmian right before his eyes. Even he had the intention to kill Chu Fengmian today. Vicious? Since he dared to provoke me, killing him is already letting him off lightly. Chu Fengmian sneered. Others might think that Chu Fengmian was being arrogant when they heard those words. However, everyone present knew that what Chu Fengmian said was true. This was because the torture that Hong Xian had suffered was still vivid in their mind. Just now, Chu Fengmian had extracted Hong Xian's soul and refined it into a pearl in front of everyone. Now, they could hear Hong Xian's blood-curdling screams as they approached the black pearl. In comparison, although Huoshi was dead, compared to the torture that Hong Xian had suffered, Chu Fengmian was indeed merciful. He's so vicious at such a young age. If we don't stop him, he'll definitely become a demon in the future. Dong Gongjue looked at Chu Fengmian with murderous intent in his eyes. Xing Bailey, what are you hesitating for? Are you not going to take action against such a demon? Are you waiting to see the people of the 9 regions suffer? Dong Gongjue turned his head and shouted at the desolate ancient sect disciples behind him. All desolate ancient sect disciples, listen up. Attack together and kill this demon. Save the people of the 9 regions. Yes. All the disciples of the desolate ancient sect unleashed their spiritual energy at this moment. Waves of spiritual energy enveloped Chu Fengmian and surrounded him. From the looks of it, Chu Fengmian was like a demon that everyone had the right to kill. How dare the people of the 7 major sects call someone else a demon? What a joke. But so what if I, Chu Fengmian, am a demon today? I'll destroy the 7 major sects sooner or later. Chu Fengmian shouted coldly. Kill the demon. Kill. Dong Gongjue shouted and attacked. The desolate ancient energy shrouded his fists, and the illusory figure of Donggong Zhanquang behind him suddenly attacked together. 2 fists of wind blasted towards Chu Fengmian. Dong Gongjue wasn't the only one. The other desolate ancient sect disciples also attacked at the same time. Fists of wind blasted towards Chu Fengmian. The spiritual energy of the desolate ancient sect disciples gathered together to form a huge desolate ancient divine fist that descended from the sky. Junior brother. Seeing so many desolate ancient sect disciples joining forces, Qing Meng couldn't help but look at Chu Fengmian. Just as she was about to speak, she was interrupted by Chu Fengmian. Senior sister, you don't have to do anything. I'll kill these people with my own hands to avenge my dead master, senior brother, and senior sister. Chu Fengmian's eyes grew colder. A gust of wind spiritual energy slowly gathered on the sword in Chu Fengmian's hand. Chapter 1699. Tens of thousands of sword chi and wind spiritual energy from the world's edge sword case merged into the blade in Chu Fengmian's hand. As a result, the sword in his hand had a cyan color to it. What is this? What kind of swordsmanship is this? What does this kid want? Dong Gongjue's face twitched when he saw the blade in Chu Fengmian's hand. He was an antique who had lived for 10,000 years. He was much more knowledgeable than Wu Dao, Little Yao, and Wang Hanyi. With a single glance, he could tell that every strand of sword qi that flew out of the world's end sword case behind Chu Fengmian contained incomparably powerful energy. But now, these tens of thousands of sword qi had merged into Chu Fengmian's blade. Although it looked calm now, Dong Gongjue could already imagine how terrifying the power of the blade would be once it exploded. Kill this man! Dong Gongjue roared crazily. He pushed the power in his body to the extreme. The barren ancient great path appeared under his feet. He took a step forward and attacked Chu Fengmian. You're courting death. Chu Fengmian looked at Dong Gongjue with a disdainful smile. Four directions hurricane sword. Chu Fengmian roared. The blade in his hand suddenly moved. Sword chi burst out and turned into sword chi hurricanes that swept through everything. Boom! Dozens of sword chi hurricanes swept out in all directions with Chu Fengmian as the center. Dong Gongjue was the first to bear the brunt of the sword chi hurricanes. The power gathered in his fist was destroyed mercilessly by the sword chi hurricanes. At the same time, the barren ancient sect disciples' barren ancient divine fists fell from the sky and bombarded Chu Fengmian. Chu Fengmian didn't even bat an eyelid at the reward of the barren ancient divine fists. He pointed the spiritual sword in his hand and shot up into the sky. A dazzling sword light swept across. Boom! The sword light flashed and the barren ancient divine fists was cut into pieces. Dong Gongjue and the other barren ancient sect disciples suddenly attacked Chu Fengmian's countless killing moves. Chu Fengmian easily resolved all of them. Is he still human? Is he really an 8th Tribulation Emperor Gu? Before the Alpha Hall disciples could make a move, they were dumbfounded when they saw the scene before them. With Dong Gongju and so many disciples of the sect of the barren ancient sect attacking at the same time, any Emperor Gu of the 9 tribulations would die under their combined attack. But now, Chu Fengmian had easily neutralized countless attacks. Dong Gongju was forced to retreat. His eyes were filled with disbelief. Impossible, how can your strength be so terrifying? Moreover, your swordsmanship is not from the Sword Dao sect. Who are you? Who am I? Of course I'm the one who's going to kill you. Since I'm going to die, I might as well be a confused ghost. Chu Fengmian shouted coldly. With a thought, the Four Winds Hurricane Sword unleashed countless sword chi that surrounded Dong Gongju. The power of the Four Winds Hurricane Sword was that it could make it impossible for the enemy to escape. Dong Gongju's expression changed drastically. He kept retreating and wanted to escape, but Chu Fengmian's sword was much faster than his body. In the blink of an eye, streams of sword aura hurricanes came and surrounded Dong Gongju. You dare to kill me? You will die without a burial place. I am from the Donggong family. Our family has many experts. If you kill me, I will be buried with you. Seeing the sword chi hurricanes approaching, the arrogance on Donggong Ju's face disappeared completely. It was replaced by fear as he looked at Chu Fengmian. Donggong family, I will destroy the Donggong family sooner or later to accompany you. Today, I will take your blood as the first sacrifice to this sword. Chu Fengmian held the Titanic Gate Divine sword in his hand. When he heard Donggong Ju's words, he raised the sword in his hand and slashed down. Donggong Ju's body exploded under the sword chi, turning into blood essence that filled the sky. Chu Fengmian took a glance and activated the sky-devouring secret technique. All the blood essence in Donggong Ju's body was devoured by Chu Fengmian and turned into pure spiritual energy. This old man's blood essence and spiritual energy are strong. It seems like he has consumed many good things. Chu Fengmian could feel that the blood essence in Donggong Ju was stronger than the spiritual energy in Wu Dao's blood essence. He couldn't help but smile. In terms of strength, Wu Dao was much stronger than Donggong Ju. At least, Wu Dao was enough to threaten Chu Fengmian. However, Chu Fengmian could kill Donggong Ju with a single slash. Donggong Ju was born in the Donggong family. It could be said that the Donggong family controlled the desolate ancient sect. Donggong Ju naturally received a lot of resources in the desolate ancient sect. However, Donggong Ju's blood essence had been devoured by Chu Fengmian. All these resources belonged to Chu Fengmian. The Donggong elder is dead. This man is no longer human. He's a demon, a demon. Let's run. The other disciples of the desolate ancient sect fled when they saw Donggong Ju dead. Donggong Ju was no match for Chu Fengmian's slash. They were no match for Chu Fengmian. You want to leave after killing me? Not so easy. All of you die. Chu Fengmian looked at the disciples of the desolate ancient sect who were running away and shouted coldly. The Four Winds Hurricane sword released a hurricane that spread out. Countless disciples of the desolate ancient sect tried to escape, but before they could take more than a few steps, their bodies were sucked into the sword chi hurricane and mercilessly crushed. In an instant there was only a faint smell of blood left in the sky. There were no more escape lights. Without exception, all the disciples of the desolate ancient sect were killed by the hurricane. Chu Fengmian didn't let go of the empty rings and blood essence of the disciples of the desolate ancient sect. He activated the sky-devouring secret technique and devoured them all. Donggong Ju is dead? Xing Bailey, who had witnessed the entire scene, was dumbfounded. He was speechless. Donggong Ju wasn't talented, but he was an antique who had lived for tens of thousands of years. With countless resources, he could be considered one of the top figures among the 9 tribulations Emperor Gu. Now, he couldn't even withstand a single slash from Chu Fengmian. Why didn't you attack? Chu Fengmian suddenly looked at Xing Bailey. Chapter 1700. However, the disciples of Alpha Hall did not make a move and Chu Fengmian kept his sword. The grudge between him and the 7 great sects was a grudge between the older generation. Chu Fengmian did not bother to bicker with these disciples. Since they did not make a move, Chu Fengmian could not be bothered to kill them. Forget it. Xing family, I'll give you a chance. I can let you go today, but you have to answer a few questions of mine. Chu Fengmian looked at Xing Bailey and said with a complicated expression, What do you want to ask? Xing Bailey was excited when he heard that Chu Fengmian was going to let them go. However, his face turned gloomy when he heard what Chu Fengmian said next. The Xing family was the #1 family in Alpha Hall. They controlled the entire Alpha Hall. Perhaps Chu Fengmian wanted to ask about the secrets of Alpha Hall. He would rather die than reveal them. However, Chu Fengmian's next question stunned Xing Bailey. Is Yao Guang still in Alpha Hall? Chu Fengmian looked at Xing Bailey and suddenly asked, Yao Guang? Are you talking about the Yao Guang Star Emperor of Alpha Hall? Xing Bailey's face changed when he heard the 2 words Yao Guang. The two words Yao Guang represented one of the great secrets of Alpha Hall. Even among the experts of the 7 great sects, there were not many who knew about it. There should only be one lady in Alpha Hall who is worthy of these 2 words. Chu Fengmian said calmly when he heard Xing Beilei's words. No one could tell what Chu Fengmian was thinking from his face. If we are talking about the Yao Guang Star Emperor, then there is no Yao Guang Star Emperor in Alpha Hall. The Yao Guang Star Emperor left Alpha Hall thousands of years ago and established his own sect. Xing Beilei pondered for a moment before replying. Yao Guang left Alpha Hall? Chu Fengmian couldn't help but think of a figure when he heard Xing Beilei's words. It was a mysterious young lady who was like a star. The daughter of the Xing family, Xing Yao Guang. In the era 10,000 years ago, the name of the Star Emperor was extremely dazzling. In the history of the Imperial Pivot Hall, there were only a few. However, she was not even 20 years old, and she had already locked down the name of the future Star Emperor. Now, it seemed like she had inherited the name of Star Emperor. Chu Fengmian shook his head and stopped thinking about the ancient memories. Chu Fengmian looked at Xing Beilei and said, "You're from the Xing clan, you should be able to find Yao Guang. Tell her that I'm waiting for her at the Sword Dao Gate." This Alcade Star Emperor. Ever since the Alpha Hall became independent, she hasn't contacted the Alpha Hall for thousands of years. I'm afraid I can't find her either. When Xing Beilei heard Chu Fengmian's words, he said with some hesitation. However, when he looked at Chu Fengmian's expression, the corners of Chu Fengmian's mouth revealed a smile that was not a smile. Xing Beilei, are you lying to me? Chu Fengmian looked at Xing Beilei and said with killing intent in his eyes. I don't dare. Seeing the killing intent in Chu Fengmian's eyes, Xing Beilei hurriedly said. His strength was not much stronger than Donggong Ju. Even Donggong Ju was no match for Chu Fengmian. If he were to face Chu Fengmian, he would only end up being killed by Chu Fengmian's sword. If other people from the Xing clan couldn't see Yao Guang, I would believe it. However, Yao Guang wouldn't ignore you even if she left the Alpha Hall. Chu Fengmian looked at Xing Beilei and said with a cold smile. Why? Are you still trying to lie to me? You? How do you know so much? Who are you? Xing Beilei's face changed completely when he heard this. It was as if he had seen a ghost. Among the 7 major sects, there were still some people who knew about it. After all, Xing Yao Guang was the most dazzling genius in the Alpha Hall. Even after thousands of years, there were only a few people who were still alive. However, there would still be some old antiques who remembered it. Chu Fengmian heard it from some people and it was possible. But now, Chu Fengmian actually said that he was related to Xing Yao Guang. Not many people knew that the ordinary Xing Beilei from the Xing clan was actually siblings with the unparalleled talent Xing Yao Guang. In order for Xing Yao Guang to inherit the position of the Star Emperor and maintain the legitimacy, Xing Yao Guang's identity had always been the daughter of the previous Star Emperor of the Xing clan. However, in reality, Xing Yao Guang was only from a side branch of the Xing clan. There were only a few people who knew about this secret since he was young. Even in the Alpha Hall, there were not many people who knew about it. But now, Chu Fengmian actually knew about it. Who am I? You will naturally understand when you see Yao Guang. Tell her what I said. Chu Fengmian looked at Xing Beilei and said calmly. He didn't want to explain. I need something from you. Something to prove your identity. Xing Beilei looked at Chu Fengmian and said slowly. Prove my identity. Hearing Xing Beilei's words, Chu Fengmian's eyes flickered. He was thinking about something. Then, a sword intent slowly gathered in Chu Fengmian's palm. This sword intent condensed in Chu Fengmian's palm and turned into the shape of a spiritual sword. It didn't look much different from a spiritual sword formed by ordinary sword intents. Only the word Chu was carved on the blade. Give this spiritual sword to Yao Guang and she will know who I am. Chu Fengmian handed the spiritual sword to Xing Beilei. He then looked at the disciples of the Alpha Hall and said coldly. Today I will let you off. However, this is the only time. Next time I will not show mercy. Even if you are from the Xing clan, it will be the same. Let's go. Let's go. After receiving the spiritual sword, Xing Bailey didn't want to waste any more time with Chu Fengmian. He led the disciples of the Alpha Hall and left in a hurry. He didn't doubt that with Chu Fengmian's character, if he didn't leave now, he wouldn't have the chance to. Let's return to the Sword Dao sect. Among the 7 major sects, only the desolate ancient sect and the Alpha Hall came to besiege Chu Fengmian. This made Chu Fengmian uneasy. It was impossible for the remaining 5 major sects to not make a move. However, if they weren't here to besiege Chu Fengmian, they would most likely be here for the Sword Dao sect. Within the Sword Dao sect, there was Han Yueli and Luo Shi guarding it. In addition to the defensive array that Chu Fengmian had set up before he left, it could withstand the attacks of many experts. However, if it was really besieged by the other 5 major sects, the Sword Dao sect wouldn't be able to withstand for long. From the looks of Xing Bailey and Dong Gongjue, there were probably still many antiques from 10,000 years ago in the 7 major sections. The strength of these antiques was extremely terrifying. Even Han Yueli and Luo Shi might not be able to withstand them. Chapter 1701. Battles were still going on in the returning ruined sky. The Crimson Continent could only be considered as the biggest treasure trove that had been opened in the Sinkhole Sky. However, other than the Crimson Continent, the Sinkhole Sky had many other treasures that had been opened at the same time, attracting the experts of the 9 domains and various star domains to fight for them. However, Chu Fengmian was no longer interested in fighting for the treasures this time. He had gained a lot from the Crimson Continent. The resources he had now were enough to help him break through and become Emperor Gu of the 9 tribulations. At this time, what Chu Fengmian lacked was no longer treasures, but time. He needed to find a safe place to break through. News of Chu Fengmian's return to the 9 domains had already spread to the 7 great sects. This time, only the Barren Ancient Sect and Dubhe Palace had asked Dong Gongju and Xing Bailey to deal with Chu Fengmian. They must have underestimated Chu Fengmian's strength. This time, all the disciples of the Barren Ancient Sect, including Dong Gongju, had been killed by Chu Fengmian. It wouldn't take long for the 7 great sects to know about this. The next person to deal with Chu Fengmian might be much stronger than Dong Gongju. Chu Fengmian urgently needed to break through to the 9 tribulations Emperor Gu realm. Only then would he have the strength to protect himself against the 7 great sects. In addition, Chu Fengmian was worried about the Sword Dao sect. He would return to the sect first. Chu Fengmian, Qing Meng, and Emperor Yan's conveyance light traversed the entire returning ruined sky and flew out of a spatial crack. As soon as they left the returning ruined sky, a large amount of spiritual energy waves were transmitted over. The battles outside the returning ruined sky were no less intense than those inside. There were treasures everywhere in the returning ruined sky. Almost all the warriors who were able to leave the ultimate ruined sky had earned a lot of treasures. Everyone had earned a lot. Therefore, a large number of experts were waiting outside the returning ruined sky. Whenever a lone or injured warrior came out, they would swarm forward and hunt down the warrior who came out. Someone else is coming out. 3 people? They look so young. They don't look like they're from the 7 great sects. Let's kill them and take their things first. The moment Chu Fengmian and the others left the returning ruins heaven, they were targeted by several warriors. In an instant, several blades of light were aimed at Chu Fengmian. About 7 or 8 warriors suddenly attacked Chu Fengmian the moment he appeared after leaving the returning ruined sky. Blade lights slashed toward him. This sudden attack was to kill Chu Fengmian and the other 2 before they could stabilize their footing and seize the treasures. You're courting death. Chu Fengmian didn't even make a move. The Yen Emperor, who was standing beside him, changed his expression and waved his hand. waves of spiritual energy surged out and broke the saber light that filled the sky. "Oh no, 9 tribulations, Emperor Gu! Retreat!" Feeling the power of the Yen Emperor's attack, the warriors who had just launched a sneak attack retreated and turned to run. These martial artists were all experts at the level of Emperor Gu. Even the 8 tribulations Emperor Gu would find it hard to withstand their sudden attack. Outside the returning ruined sky, they had killed countless warriors who had just left the returning ruined sky. But this time they had kicked an iron plate. Die! The Yen Emperor snorted when he saw the fleeing warriors. With a wave of his hand, several waves of spiritual energy blasted out. The warriors who had just left the returning ruined sky came to a halt and were hit by the waves of spiritual energy. They were immediately killed in the air. The Yen Emperor made a grabbing motion, and their empty rings fell into the Yen Emperor's palm. The 9 domains are in turmoil. There are many people who take advantage of the chaos. Chu Fengmian's gaze swept across the area. Ambushes like the one just now were everywhere in the borders of the returning ruined sky. Not every warrior who left the returning ruined sky had the strength of Chu Fengmian and the Yen Emperor. Many people had just left the returning ruined sky with a bountiful harvest and were planning to improve their strength. But the moment they left the returning ruined sky, they were intercepted and killed. The strong preyed on the weak. This was the rule among warriors. Ambushes like this could be seen everywhere, not just in the 9 domains, but in any star domain. However, those who dared to intercept Chu Fengmian must have planned to be killed. The warriors who had just intercepted Chu Fengmian had hit an iron plate and were killed by the Yen Emperor. "Let's go." Chu Fengmian glanced at them and said. As long as these people didn't provoke him, Chu Fengmian couldn't be bothered to make a fuss about it. Just as Chu Fengmian was about to leave, a violent wave of spiritual energy erupted. This wave of spiritual energy was at least at the level of the 9 tribulations Emperor Gu. In an instant it attracted countless gazes. Chu Fengmian also looked over. At the edge of the returning ruined sky, in the sky above, several figures were besieging a middle-aged man. This middle-aged man and several other figures were at the level of the 9 tribulations Emperor Gu. Even in the 9 domains, where countless experts had gathered, such a great battle was rare. These 4 people are from the Tai Ching star domain. The Yen Emperor's expression changed when he saw the 4 middle-aged men besieging them. He was a little surprised. The Tai Ching star domain was a star domain that was extremely far away from the Daluotian star domain. It was much further away than the Yen Luo star domain and the Pure Land star domain, which were close to the Daluotian star domain. In the records of the 9 domains, there were very few records of the Tai Ching star domain. This was because it was too far away. When Chu Fengmian heard the Yen Emperor's words, he couldn't help but look at the 4 people. They were from the Tai Ching star domain. It seemed that although the 9 domains had declined, the name of the sacred domains still existed. The experts of the Tai Ching star domain were attracted over. The middle-aged man they were besieging was dressed in blue. Chu Fengmian found him very familiar. Is that the Emperor Gu of the Shanghai capital? The middle-aged man was dressed in blue and had water spiritual energy circulating around his body. Blue clothing with water spiritual energy was almost the symbol of the Shanghai capital. It was said that in the continent where the Shanghai capital was located, almost 90% of it was occupied by water. Therefore, Emperor Gu, who was born in the Shanghai capital, had strong water spiritual energy and was very easy to recognize. It's the Jade Cloud Sea King, one of the 4 Sea Kings of the Shanghai capital. These 4 Sea Kings are the pinnacle figures of the 9 tribulations Emperor Gu. They are the pillars of the Shanghai capital and have the potential to step into the half-step celestial realm in the future. Qing Meng took a glance and recognized the identity of the current Emperor Gu. The Jade Cloud Sea King? The father of the Princess of the Sea. Chapter 1702. When Chu Fengmian saw Emperor Gu of the Sea capital being besieged, he lost interest and was ready to leave. However, things were different now that it was the Azure Cloud Sea King. Chu Fengmian owed the Princess of the Sea a big favor. If the Princess of the Sea had not told Chu Fengmian about the 5 elements Saber Saint's sneak attack, Chu Fengmian would have been killed. Chu Fengmian might have been killed by the 5 elements Saber Saint when he was unprepared. The sneak attack of a half-step to the celestial realm put Chu Fengmian in great danger even when he was prepared, let alone when he was caught off guard. Even if Chu Fengmian was lucky enough to escape, he would not have been able to reap such great rewards from the Pure Land Buddhist temple. Chu Fengmian distinguished between gratitude and grudges, and he would definitely repay the favor he owed. "Brother Chu, are we leaving?" Emperor Yan asked Chu Fengmian after he saw the people among them clearly. The sea capital and Chu Fengmian were still enemies. The 3 major forces in the Daluo star field had dealt with Chu Fengmian many times. "Save him. I owe the Princess of the Sea a favor, and now it's time to return the favor," Chu Fengmian said indifferently. The Princess of the Sea told Chu Fengmian about the 5 elements Saber Saint's sneak attack, which could be considered as saving Chu Fengmian's life. Today, Chu Fengmian saved the Azure Cloud Sea King, which could be considered as repaying the Princess of the Sea's favor. "You don't have to do anything. I'll go alone." As soon as Chu Fengmian finished speaking, he turned into a ray of light and flew over. On the other side, the Azure Cloud's Sea King was worthy of being one of the 4 Sea Kings of the Sea Capital. He was only at a slight disadvantage when fighting against 4 Sea Kings. However, the 4 Emperor Gu of the Taiching star field cooperated well. Even if they were not a match for the Azure Cloud's Sea King in a one-on-one fight, they were able to force the Azure Cloud's Sea King into desperate situations time and time again when they worked together. "Old man, hand over the 6 harmony clean water, and we'll let you go. You don't have to struggle anymore. Unless you're a half-step to the celestial realm, you're dreaming if you think you can fight against the 4 of us." Chu Fengmian had just approached when he heard the ancient emperor of the Supreme Pure Star Domain speak. He immediately understood why these Emperor Gu of the Grand Clarity Star Field had besieged the Jade Cloud Sea King. The 6 harmonies clean water was an item formed from the purest water spiritual energy in the world. It was used to cleanse the body and expel impurities. It was also a rare treasure. When martial artists refined pills, saint medicines and so on, even ancient saint medicines, there would be impurities in them. When these impurities fell into the body and accumulated, they would not have any effect on normal days. However, if one wanted to step into the half-step celestial realm, or even the celestial realm, this kind of impurity would have a huge impact. For a martial artist at the peak of the 9 tribulations Emperor Gu's level, ordinary treasures were already unable to remove the impurities in his body. Only the 6 harmonies clean water could do that. For any Emperor Gu of the 9 tribulations, the 6 harmonies clean water was a must-have. It seemed that the 4 Emperor Gu of the Grand Clarity Star Field knew that the Jade Cloud Sea King had the 6 harmonies clean water. They wanted to force him to hand over the 6 harmonies clean water. Hearing that they wanted him to hand over the 6 harmonies clean water, the Jade Cloud Sea King's face changed and he sneered. "In your dreams." The Jade Cloud Sea King's strength had already reached the peak of the 9 tribulations Emperor Gu's level. The 6 harmonies clean water was very useful for him to step into the half-step celestial realm. Naturally, he was unwilling to hand it over now. "Stubborn old man, kill him." The 4 Emperor Gu of the Grand Clarity Star Field snorted and attacked one after another. Their cultivation method was extremely unique. It condensed a kind of Grand Clarity energy and turned it into countless weapons to fight against the enemy. Sabers, spears, swords, and halberds. 4 weapons condensed by Grand Clarity energy slashed down with a loud bang. The Jade Cloud Sea King's expression became extremely solemn. He could also see that the 4 Emperor Gu of the Grand Clarity star field wanted to kill him. At this critical moment, several sword glows suddenly descended from the sky and slashed at the sabers, spears, swords, and halberds. The sabers, spears, swords, and halberds all exploded and turned back into Taiching Qi. The 4 weapons were all broken, and the 4 ancient emperors from the Supreme Clarity star field were forced to retreat. They hurriedly looked around. The Jade Cloud Sea King's eyes also revealed an extremely incredulous look. He knew very well how powerful the 4 Emperor Gu of the Grand Clarity star field were. Now they were actually forced to retreat by a few rays of sword qi. If this sword qi is not from our vast ocean capital, then who is it? The Avalon of 5 elements? Or the Qilin Mountain? There shouldn't be such a sword cultivator in the Avalon of 5 elements and the Qilin Mountain. The Jade Cloud Sea King's mind was constantly thinking, but he came up with nothing. He simply could not think of anyone. Meanwhile, a figure suddenly descended from the sky. Chu Fengmian. The Jade Cloud Sea King's eyes revealed an extremely shocked expression when he saw the appearance of this figure. This shock was even greater than when he had seen the rays of sword qi force the 4 Emperor Gu of the Grand Clarity star field to retreat. He had never dreamed that the person who would come to his rescue at this time would be Chu Fengmian. It should be known that the vast ocean capital had dealt with Chu Fengmian many times. He and Chu Fengmian should have an irreconcilable relationship. It would be good enough if Chu Fengmian did not kick him when he was down. Now, he had actually come to his rescue. I'm just returning a favor. Chu Fengmian looked at the Jade Cloud's Emperor Gu and did not bother to explain. He looked at the 4 Emperor Gu of the Grand Clarity star field and spoke coldly. I'll protect this person. You guys leave. Who are you, brat? Protect this old man? How arrogant of you! One of the Emperor Gu of the Grand Clarity star field snorted coldly when he saw Chu Fengmian. I advise you to mind your own business, lest you end up getting yourself killed. They had already forced the Jade Cloud's Sea Monarch into a desperate situation, so the 6 Harmony purified water would soon be theirs. Now, Chu Fengmian had asked them to retreat as soon as he arrived. This arrogant tone was simply unacceptable. Especially if Chu Fengmian was a half-step to the celestial being realm expert, they naturally could only retreat obediently and not dare to resist. But now, Chu Fengmian was just an 8 Tribulation Emperor Gu. His realm was even lower than theirs, yet he dared to speak so arrogantly. You dare to trouble the 4 of us alone? It seems that you are tired of living. Another Emperor Gu of the Grand Clarity star field stared at Chu Fengmian and spoke. Get lost. Chapter 1703. Get lost. The 4 ancient emperors from the Supreme Clarity starfield were stunned. In the next moment, a cruel smile appeared on their faces. Boy, it seems like you are seeking your own death. Well, since you want to die, we will fulfill your wish. One of the Emperor Gu of the Tai Ching star field roared. Let's kill this boy first. Okay. The other 3 Emperor Gu of the Tai Ching star field responded at the same time. The 4 of them attacked at the same time. The cultivation techniques of the 4 Emperor Gu of the Tai Ching star field complemented each other. Once they joined forces, their power was much stronger than when they fought alone. Waves of Tai Ching Qi erupted from the hands of the 4 Emperor Gu of the Tai Ching star field. They began to condense in the air and turned into 4 weapons: a saber, a spear, a sword, and a halberd. The 4 weapons fell from the sky at the same time and bombarded Chu Fengmian. 1 against 4, isn't this brat a little too arrogant? Some of the onlookers frowned when they saw Chu Fengmian fighting 1 against 4. They had seen the strength of the 4 Emperor Gu of the Tai Ching star field. Even the Jade Cloud Sea King was no match for the 4 of them when they joined forces. The Jade Cloud Sea King could be considered a famous expert in the Daluo star field. Even he was no match for the 4 of them, let alone Chu Fengmian, who was only an 8 tribulation Emperor Gu. Since you don't want to get lost, then die. Only Chu Fengmian's expression was extremely calm. He looked at the 4 Emperor Gu of the Tai Ching star field and said coldly. He had no enmity with the 4 Emperor Gu of the Tai Ching star field, and Chu Fengmian didn't want to kill them. If they knew when to back down, Chu Fengmian would let them go. But now, Chu Fengmian had given them a chance, and they didn't cherish it. They even wanted to deal with Chu Fengmian, so Chu Fengmian had no intention of showing mercy. There was only one outcome for those who dared to oppose Chu Fengmian, and that was death. When the great pure qi condensed into sabers, spears, swords, and halberds in the air and bombarded Chu Fengmian suddenly raised his right hand and slapped it. The dragon roared. The moment Chu Fengmian's palm blasted out, Tianlong's power began to condense, turning into an incomparably huge dragon claw that swept across the sky. Primogenitor's second move. As Chu Fengmian grew stronger and his bloodline became more refined, the power of the 9 moves of the progenitor also became more terrifying. When the dragon claw was formed, its power was not inferior to that of the true ancestor sky dragon, Long Cha. It swept across the heavens. The sabers, spears, swords, and halberds formed by the grand pure qi were mercilessly crushed by the dragon claw in an instant. In the next instant, the dragon claw slammed towards the 4 ancient emperors of the grand pure star domain. In an instant, the situation was reversed. With just one move, Chu Fengmian had neutralized the joint attack of the 4 ancient emperors of the Supreme Clarity Starfield and even launched a counterattack. The saber, spear, sword, and halberd formed by the great pure qi was so powerful that even the aquamarine sea monarch would have a hard time dealing with it. However, they were extremely fragile in front of Chu Fengmian's dragon claw. The battle dragon claw, which contained surging dragon power, tore through space and blasted towards the 4 Taiching Emperor Gu. The 4 ancient emperors of the Supreme Purity Star Domain seemed to have not expected this. By the time they reacted, the battle dragon claw was already closing in on their bodies. At this time, the 4 Emperor Gu of the Taiching star field displayed their escape light and retreated continuously. Too slow. Chu Fengmian looked coldly at the 4 Emperor Gu of the Taiching star field and immediately enveloped them with dragon power. When the dragon power enveloped the 4 Emperor Gu of the Taiching star field, the space around them seemed to be mercilessly sealed by the dragon power. Tianlong transformation. The power of the primogenitor Tianlong's bloodline sealed the heavens. The 4 Emperor Gu of the Taiching star field suddenly stopped in the air. No matter how hard they struggled, they couldn't break the space and take another step back. At this moment, the battle dragon claw mercilessly swept across. Puff, puff. The 4 Emperor Gu of the Taiching star field were immediately sent flying by the power of the battle dragon claw. 2 of them spat out a large amount of essence blood. The other 2 Emperor Gu of the Taiching star field were in an even worse state. Their bodies were directly torn apart by the battle dragon claw. Before such powerful power, their torn bodies immediately exploded. Not even their bones remained. They turned into a clump of bloody mist in the air. They were completely blown apart. The essence blood in their bodies was all collected by Chu Fengmian and refined by the sky-devouring secret technique. In one move, 2 were dead and 2 were injured. On the other side, Chu Fengmian was still standing in the air, as if he was taking a stroll in the park. Chu Fengmian didn't even move his feet when he attacked just now. He just casually slapped down with his palm and caused all of this. Such a terrifying power was as if Chu Fengmian had just casually attacked. So terrifying. How can Chu Fengmian's strength be so terrifying? These are 4 Emperor Gu of the 9 tribulations. Even when they joined forces, they couldn't withstand a single move from Chu Fengmian. Many of the martialists present were powerhouses from the Adaluotian star field. When they heard Chu Fengmian's name, they knew his identity. Although Chu Fengmian had only appeared in the Adaluotian star field for a few months, His reputation was extremely great. He was known as the most dazzling genius in the Holy Dragon sect. His talent was extremely heaven-defying. However, no matter how talented he was, it only represented Chu Fengmian's potential and not his strength. A genius wasn't a powerhouse after all. However, who would dare say that Chu Fengmian wasn't a powerhouse when they looked at him? The 9 Tribulations Emperor Gu couldn't even withstand a single blow from Chu Fengmian. This kind of strength was already at the peak of the 9 Tribulations Emperor Gu. The 2 Emperor Gu of the Grand Pure Star Field, who had retreated, were now looking at Chu Fengmian in horror. After killing the 2 Emperor Gu of the Grand Pure Star Field, Chu Fengmian's gaze turned to the remaining 2. Since Chu Fengmian wanted to kill, he naturally couldn't kill 2 and let 2 go. The Grand Pure Star Field was extremely mysterious. Chu Fengmian didn't know much about the Grand Pure Star Field. However, since he had already decided to kill today, Chu Fengmian would naturally kill them all. When they saw Chu Fengmian's murderous gaze, the 2 surviving Emperor Gu of the Grand Pure Star Field were alarmed and hurriedly retreated. You can't kill us. You have to know that the Grand Pure Star Field is tyrannical and far surpasses your tiny Adalu Ocean star field. If you kill us, you'll get revenge, one of the Emperor Gu of the Grand Pure Star Field threatened Chu Fengmian. However, he was only halfway through his threat. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.